of. It's the evil and the ugliness of people's hearts these days.
This is Franky Rose's Think Tank. Here's your host, Franky Rose.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Think Tank. So we've got Proctor on the stand. So we just finished taking a look at the fire in Miami. So check that out after we're done up here. And there's also part one basically of this. So you want to maybe check that out as well. Okay, we're off. Tori.
Board is back in session. You may be seated.
All right, Mr. Lally, your next witness, please.
Yes, Your Honor, the Commonwealth, the call Trooper Michael Proctor to the stand.
Boom.
Welcome officers down there. Just be mindful to step up. I'm going to set your face in. Raise your right hand. Also, swear the evidence the court and jury in the case down here is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning. Good morning, jurors.
All right, Mr. Lally, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Would you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
Trooper Michael Proctor, PROCTOR.
And how are you employed, sir?
I am currently assigned to the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office in the Homicide Unit within the Massachusetts State Police.
And how long have
Trooper,
you
I'm going to ask you to keep your voice up loud, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And, sir, if you want, that microphone in front of you is adjustable, so however close or far away you want. Now, how long have you been a trooper with the State Police?
A little over 10 years, and it'll be 5 years in September with the Homicide Unit.
Now, with reference to your work with the Homicide Unit, with the Detective Unit at the District Attorney's Office, what, if any, specialized training did you receive in regard to your work within that unit?
I've attended several homicide schools. I've also been certified in Celebrite software programming. I've also, in addition to homicide investigations, have worked within the narcotics unit on several different investigations there as well.
Now, with respect to your work with the detective units, as far as you have sort of an on-call system,
We do.
and can you explain to the jury sort of how that works, or how those specific days for your on-call duties are assigned?
Sure. So a Sergeant Buchanan usually sets the on-call rotation. It's at random, and your on-call is from 7 a.m. to 7 a.m. Any unattended death, homicide, suicide, overdose, things of that nature that comes in during that time frame, you own it. That's your call.
Now, were you working in that capacity with the detective units on January 29th, 2022?
Yes.
And at some point in the morning, did you receive a call in regard to a situation in the town of Canton?
I did.
And what, if anything, was that? When did you first receive that call from them?
Sergeant Buchanan called me at approximately 6:48 that Saturday morning, advised that Canton PD had a male party that was discovered in the snow outside of a residence, and he wasn't sure what had happened. It was originally given to me as a possible medical situation.
And based on that initial call and that initial information that you received, what, if anything, did you do?
And at that point, I knew I needed to gather further information. So I contacted Detective Lank from Canton Police Department to see exactly what transpired in the morning. He had informed me that a male party had been transported to Good Samaritan Hospital with some injuries. Detective Lank didn't have much more information, so I knew I needed to contact the paramedic at the hospital, the individual who's treating Mr. O'Keefe.
Now,
So
before we get to that, if I could, I'm sorry. As far as Detective Sergeant Lank was concerned, was that someone that you called on your own, or how did you get his information, or why did you call him specifically?
I knew he was on scene, so I called Detective Lank.
So that was some information that you had received at some point earlier, and then you contacted Detective Sergeant Lank.
Correct.
And following that, you reached out to whom? I'm sorry.
This firefighter Anthony Flamati.
And with reference to that conversation, what, if anything, did you learn from that?
Firefighter Flamati informed me that
I'm going to allow it.
Firefighter Flamati informed me that Mr. O'Keefe had some injuries to his right arm, some abrasions to his right arm, some injuries to his eyes, a cut to the nose area, and he put a 10% chance of survival for Mr. O'Keefe.
And then based on that information, who did you call next?
I contacted Sergeant Buchanan, advised him that this sounds like it's more than a medical situation.
And what, if any, decision did you and Sergeant Buchanan come to with regard to what to do or where to go, or what the next step should be?
So there's a couple different steps. Number one, it was blizzard conditions, and we operate, Ford Fusions or Chevy Malibu. So we got authorization to use our personal vehicles that are four-wheel drive, and to meet at Canton PD and to speak with the responding officers.
And about what time was it that you and Sergeant Buchanan arrived at the Canton Police Department?
It was approximately 10 a.m. that morning.
And so, Trooper Proctor, if I could ask you, whereabouts were you at about 8:22 in the morning?
Home.
Had you shoveled out of your driveway at that time?
Not yet.
Had you cleaned off your car at that time?
No.
So you arrived at the Canton Police Station about 10 a.m. or so. When was it that you arrived in relation to Sergeant Buchanan, if you know?
At Canton PD?
Yes.
I don't recall if Sergeant Buchanan arrived first or myself.
But suffice it to say, at some time you both arrived around 10 a.m., is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And where did you go with the Canton Police when you arrived there?
We spoke with the Sergeant Sean Good.
And what, if anything, did you learn from Sergeant Good?
Sergeant Good informed us that while he was on scene, he identified Kerry Roberts, Jennifer McCabe, Karen Reed. He also informed us that Jennifer McCabe was out early in the night at a waterfall bar in Canton with some individuals, and that she was the one who called 911 when they found Mr. O'Keefe in the snow that morning.
Now, with regard to the parties that you just mentioned, prior to January 29th, 2022, had you ever met or were you aware of either Jennifer McCabe or Kerry Roberts, or Karen Reed, or John O'Keefe?
I've never met any of them.
And at some point subsequent, did you have occasion to meet and speak with Ms. Reed?
Yes.
And do you see Ms. Reed in the courtroom today?
I do.
Just for clarification purposes, if you could identify as to where she's seated or an article of clothing that she's wearing.
She's seated between Mr. Jackson and Mr. Yannetti wearing a pinstripe sport coat.
Just that's a
Sport coat.
identification of the defendant.
Yes.
Now, after you speak with Sergeant Good, did you speak with anybody else at the Canton Police Station?
No.
And the McCabe's.
And where did yourself and Sergeant Buchanan go from there?
We then traveled to the home of Matthew and Jennifer McCabe.
Now, with reference to when I say you and Sergeant Buchanan, at how long a period of time was it that you were with Sergeant Buchanan on that date of January 29th?
It's from 10 a.m. approximately, we met at Canton Police Department until we returned to the Canton Police Department that afternoon around 5:30 in the afternoon. So all day. And we also had a debrief meeting with just the troopers in my office at Canton PD. So at least from 10 to 6, 7, because we also went back to the office with some evidence.
And so from that entire time, from 10 in the morning until later on in the night, other than maybe short drives in individual cars, were you essentially with Sergeant Buchanan that entire day?
Yes, we used Sergeant Buchanan's pickup truck that entire day. I left my personal vehicle at the police department, and I rode with Sergeant Buchanan all day and into the evening.
Now, from the Canton Police Station, where did you and Sergeant Buchanan go?
The McCabe's house in Canton.
And who, if anyone, did you speak with there?
We spoke with Matthew and Jennifer McCabe, as well as Brian Albert.
And those interviews that you conducted, were they how were they conducted?
One-on-one, Sergeant Buchanan and myself kind of rotated out Jennifer, Matthew, and Brian. So first we interviewed Jennifer, and then once that was completed, we had her step out, go to a separate room, brought in Matthew, and then the same thing with Brian.
And for the balance of the interviews that you conducted several interviews over the course of your investigation in this case. Is that correct?
Correct.
And for those interviews, as far as individually done, was that primarily what you did with each of the people that you interviewed over the course of the investigation?
Yes, each interview conducted was either with Sergeant Buchanan or another trooper, in one-on-one, with the exception of Julie and Chris Albert, I believe, were in the same room as us.
Now, with respect to, I believe you just answered it, but as far as each of the interviews that you conducted over the course of your investigation, was it at any point in time, was there an interview that you conducted just by yourself?
There was just one.
And who was that one that you conducted by yourself?
That took place just at the grand jury across the street. It was the Currans. I had some difficulty locating them, so when they appeared for grand jury, I interviewed them one-on-one by myself prior to their testimony at grand jury.
You had attempted to meet with them prior to them coming to the grand jury, is that correct?
Yes.
And they had not been responsive to that?
Correct.
However, they were responsive to the summons, and so you interviewed them before they went into the grand jury, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Other than those, as far as Mr. and Mrs. Curran, every interview that you conducted was in the presence of at least one other trooper?
Correct.
Now, as far as you mentioned one name that we hadn't discussed before at the McCabe household, a Brian Albert. Prior to January 29th, 2022, had you ever met or were you aware or did you know Brian Albert?
And I've met Brian Albert until that interview.
Now, following the interviews that you conducted at the McCabe household, where did you go from there?
After the interviews at the McCabe household, Sergeant Buchanan and I traveled to Good Samaritan Hospital for two reasons. One, we knew Miss Reed was there receiving treatment for Section 12. And two, we wanted to view Mr. O'Keefe.
And when you arrived at the Good Samaritan Hospital, was the defendant, Miss Reed, still at that facility at that time?
We had spoke with the security staff at Good Samaritan Hospital. They informed us that Miss Reed was released.
I'll allow it, just as to where you went.
That Miss Reed was released several hours prior to our arrival.
And do you know about what time it was that you arrived, yourself and Sergeant Buchanan, at the Good Samaritan?
Maybe approximately 1 o'clock.
And you mentioned there was a second reason, and that was to view Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
That's correct.
And did you have occasion, or did you have a chance to view Mr. O'Keefe's body at the Good Samaritan?
We did.
And where was that within the hospital?
That was in the emergency room.
And when you went to where Mr. O'Keefe was, can you describe for the jury what, if any, observations you made of Mr. O'Keefe's body at the time that you observed?
The first thing I noticed on Mr. O'Keefe is he had abrasions on his right arm. On the top of his right arm, there's approximately 6 to 8, ranging from his forearm to his lower bicep. There was no injuries underneath that forearm. Both eyes were swollen and black and blue. He had a cut on, I believe it was his right nostril. Another smaller cut, I believe it was on his left eye. Those were the injuries that kind of jumped out to me.
At any point in time, did you make any observations of the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head while you were there?
I did observe blood on the back of the head. I wasn't able to tell if there's any significant trauma to the back of his head.
Now, from the Good Samaritan Hospital, yourself and Sergeant Buchanan, what, if any, items did you secure in evidence from the Good Samaritan Hospital?
So after we viewed Mr. O'Keefe's body, we observed a pile of clothes in the corner that hospital staff had cut off Mr. O'Keefe and kind of piled into the corner. The one thing that had jumped out to both of us was one sneaker. And it's fairly common in a motor vehicle pedestrian strike that
Sustained. Next question. I'll strike from fairly common, the observations.
As far as the clothing that you observed, can you describe the clothing that you observed?
yes. We observed one black sneaker with the Nike logo, a pair of blue jeans, a belt, boxer shorts, an orange t-shirt, and a two-tone gray, light kind of hooded sweatshirt type of material.
Now, Trooper Proctor, over the course of your career responding to unattended deaths or death investigations as a member, as a detective of the unit, how many of those have involved situations where a pedestrian was struck by a motor vehicle?
Well, I've been in the unit, maybe 3 or 4, and then I've other experiences on the road.
And as far as the other experiences on the road, can you expound upon those as far as how many or over what time period we're talking about?
It was about 6 years I spent on the road, so maybe another 3 or 4.
And with reference to those pedestrian crashes, what, if anything, had you seen in those prior investigations in regard to sneakers or footwear of pedestrians involved in motor vehicle crashes?
Objection.
I'm going to see you at sidebar on this.
Another sidebar. Sidebar Bev. So many different words are appropriate for this woman. I'm expecting there to be fireworks. I don't know. What do you think? Is it going to be Jackson or Yannetti that deals with him? Yannetti or Jackson, do you think? I'm hoping Jackson, but good with either of them. But hoping Jackson. You're okay. Okay. I can't give you too many. Turtle wax. Yeah, that's my thoughts too. That's my thoughts too. So I missed why they ended up having to go for this sidebar. What were they?
Procedure on?
Yes.
Now, with reference to your prior experience with pedestrian crashes involving motor vehicles,
Yes.
what, if any, observations have you made on those prior occasions
Totally.
with regard to the footwear with respect to the pedestrians and motor vehicle crashes?
In those experiences, I've observed one, if not both, pieces of footwear remained at the point of impact.
And so with respect to your observations of the clothing, there only being one sneaker at Mr. O'Keefe's property, what, if any, significance did that have to you as far as the sort of steps you took subsequent in your investigation?
That was just a little piece of evidence that Sergeant Mechanic and I picked up, that only one piece of footwear revealed the potential of a vehicle strike.
Now, in addition to Sergeant Mechanic is one of your supervisors within the detective unit, is that correct?
Yes,
And there's another one, a Lieutenant Brian Tully.
that's correct.
Now, with respect to the one sneaker that was found in Mr. O'Keefe's property, what, if anything, with regard to that, did you communicate to Lieutenant Tully?
Objection.
As to how it goes to the investigation,
Yes.
I'll allow it.
So Sergeant Mechanic and I informed DLT Tully that there was one shoe at the hospital.
And with respect to Detective Lieutenant Tully, are you aware that subsequently in the afternoon that there was a search that was conducted in the area of 34 Fairview Road where Mr. O'Keefe was found?
Yes,
And are you aware of what, if anything, was recovered in the area where Mr. O'Keefe was found on that day?
Objection.
I'll allow it as to the investigation.
yes.
And what are you aware?
We were informed, Sergeant Mechanic and I were informed that SIR team and Detective Lieutenant Tully discovered a black Nike sneaker with the white swoosh logo that was a match to Mr. O'Keefe's shoe at the hospital.
Now, from these items of clothing, I'm sorry, let me just let the siren go by. Trooper, in addition to the shoe that you already referenced, what, if anything else, did you observe about what kind of clothing and the condition of the clothing that you observed at the hospital?
The clothing seemed, it was wet. It was pretty well saturated. The right sleeve had some like cuts to it, like tears to it. There's like blood and vomit on it, if I recall. Those were the observations I had made of the clothing. And they had been cut due to rendering first aid as well, the pants area.
Now, subsequent to viewing these clothing items at the hospital, at a later time, did you have occasion to observe surveillance video from a variety of places on the evening of January 28th into the early morning of January 29th, depicting Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes.
And what, if anything, did you note with regards to the clothing that you observed at the hospital and the clothing that you observed in the video?
So the videos I reviewed at CF McCarthy's bar and the Waterfall bar were the same clothes Mr. O'Keefe was wearing that Sergeant Mechanic and I had secured at Good Samaritan Hospital.
Now, Trooper, I'm going to ask you some questions just in regard to securing these items specifically as evidence, but in general terms, as far as securing items and evidence within your unit. How is that accomplished? How is that done? What do you do with items that you deem of evidentiary value that you then secure?
Generally, if we take an item for evidence, we'll put it in a brown paper bag, document it, time, date, who secured that item, address, where it's discovered, and then we'll bring that back to our office, to the evidence processing area. From there, it'll go to a permanent evidence room that has triple retention. It has an actual key, a key card, and an actual access code. And only 3 members of my office have access to that room: the 2 evidence officers and Detective Lieutenant Tully.
And at this time, in January 29th, 2022, who was assigned as the evidence officers who had access to that room?
So that'd be Trooper David Ichiko and Trooper Jeffrey Kukowski.
Did either yourself or Sergeant Buchanan have any access to that evidence storage?
No.
Now, with reference to these items that were seized and say items that were seized subsequent during the course of your investigation, did they go through that same sort of evidentiary storage process that you were speaking about before?
Yes.
Now, with reference to, in addition to the clothing items, at some point did you come into possession and seize Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
Yes.
And do you recall where it was that you received or retrieved Mr. O'Keefe's phone from?
We received it at the Canton Police Department
And was that prior to you going to the Good Samaritan?
after, I believe.
So following the Good Samaritan, where did you go from there?
So after the Good Samaritan Hospital, Sergeant Buchanan and I traveled to 345 Country Hill Drive in Dayton.
And why did you go to that location?
That was the residence of Miss Reed's parents' home, and having a brief conversation with Miss Reed on the phone, she informed us she was at her parents' house.
So you had called Miss Reed, spoken to her, and informed her that you were coming there to speak, correct?
Correct.
And just as you had done with Ms. McCabe, Mr. McCabe, you spoke to Ms. Reed within her home.
Yes.
And who, if anyone else, did you reach out to on your way there with regard to local law enforcement as you were driving to Dayton?
We contacted the Dayton Police Department just for a couple of reasons. One, it's a common courtesy. If we're in another town, we just kind of give the local PD a heads up. But also, we needed to coordinate a plow truck and potentially a tow truck as well.
And why did you need to coordinate those?
At the time, there must have been at least a foot of snow on the ground, more. And it was a dead-end cul-de-sac, so which made it difficult to navigate. So we requested the plow to clear a path for Sergeant Buchanan and I to get down the roadway, as well as clear the driveway of the residence, so the tow truck could pull into the driveway.
Now, as far as the drive from Good Samaritan, that's in Brockton, is that correct?
Yes.
As far as the drive from the Good Samaritan Brockton to the defendant's parents' home in Dayton, about how long a drive was that, and how would you describe the weather conditions along the way?
Yeah, the weather conditions were whiteout, high winds, blizzard conditions. We had to travel very slow. It was almost about an hour to get there.
And when you arrived there, you're in Sergeant Buchanan's
This guy
truck,
is
that correct?
crooked.
Correct.
Tell you what.
And where did Sergeant Buchanan position the truck in relation to the house at 345 Country Hill?
From what I recall, Sergeant Buchanan went down the cul-de-sac and turned around, and he actually had to let me out first because of the high snowbanks, and then he parked kind of along the snow, pointing essentially to Mr. Reed's house.
And at some point, did members of the Dayton Police come along and join?
Yes.
And do you recall who those people were?
I believe one of the officers' last name was Barros or Barrios.
And had you ever met that officer before?
No.
Now, with respect to the home, had you and Sergeant Buchanan approached the home at any point prior to the Dayton Police showing up?
I can't recall if, no, they had arrived first before we approached the home.
And when you approached the home, you went, what did you traverse? How did you get from the street to the home?
We walked down the driveway, and then we observed Miss Reed's Lexus parked in the driveway, the front of it facing one of the garage doors. That's when we observed the broken taillight on the right side of the vehicle. We then proceeded to the front door. The snow was about up to our waist, and knocked on the door and was greeted by Mr. Reed.
So
Up
as you're
to their
walking,
waist.
up the driveway towards the
Oh, my
home,
God.
you see Miss Reed's vehicle, is that correct?
Yes.
And that's a vehicle that you later subsequently found to be registered to Miss Karen Reed, is that correct?
Correct.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
So I'm showing you documents.
This guy's unreal. Is there not one cop in the whole damn place that's not corrupt? Yeah, exactly, Dandy. Snow up to his waist, but John barely had any snow on him. Up to his waist. And do you remember Karen's vehicle? How much snow did it have on it? It wasn't piled high.
And do
Yeah,
you,
I think
recognize
you're
that
right,
document,
James.
sir?
Yes.
And what do you recognize it to be?
The Registry Motor Vehicles, it's the certified document for Miss Reed's Lexus.
Yeah,
Is that the plate information that's contained in there? Is that the same plate that was affixed to Ms. Reed's vehicle on that day?
Yes.
And that also details sort of the history or how long she's had possession of that vehicle. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
Going back to, I believe, 2021. Is that correct?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I will seek to introduce and admit as the next exhibit.
No objection.
Now, with respect to Ms. Reed, at some point you go into the house. Is that correct?
Yes.
And how do you enter into the defendant's parents?
So Sergeant Mechanic and I, after we had knocked on the front door, Mr. Reed directed us around the corner, opened up the garage door for us and invited us in.
Now, if I could take you back to, I'm sorry, just as far as when you're coming up the driveway and you're passing by the defendant's vehicle, you mentioned some damage that you observed to the right rear passenger side area. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you describe to the jury what it was specifically that you observed as far as damage to that area of the vehicle?
Yeah, the right rear tail light had essentially large pieces missing from it.
So you proceed inside the home, and where is it that you're directed, and where is the defendant?
We're invited into a large living room area. Miss Reed is seated on a couch, and her parents, William and Janet, are present for the conversation and kind of standing off to the side.
And that conversation goes on for approximately how long?
Approximately half hour, 40 minutes.
And when you terminate that conversation, you come back outside of the home. Is that correct?
Yes.
And where is the vehicle at this point?
That is being put on the tow truck.
Now, in addition to the defendant's vehicle, what, if anything else, was taken and seized as evidence from the defendant on that morning?
After confirming the phone Miss Reed was holding was in fact hers, we told her we were seizing the phone and we'd be writing a search warrant for that.
Now, during the course of the conversation that you and Sergeant Mechanic had with the defendant that afternoon at her parents' home in Dayton, were there some questions in relation to contact information for other people that were at bars or different establishments the night before?
Yes, we asked Miss Reed specifically for some of the friends that Mr. O'Keefe was with at CF McCarthy's. One person in particular was Michael Camerano. So we observed Miss Reed enter the passcode on her phone, retrieve Mr. Camerano's phone number for us, provided to us, and that just further confirmed that was her cell phone.
Now, through your training experience, when a cell phone is seized from a person, what, if anything, is it that you do with regard to that cell phone to preserve the information on?
Well, the first thing we do is we put it in airplane mode, and then we give it to a cell phone expert in our office, Trooper Nicholas Garino, and he essentially tries to access the data in that phone once a search warrant is obtained.
Now, as far as putting that cell phone in what you described as airplane mode, what is the purpose of that?
It's to avoid if someone wants to go on a tablet or a laptop and access the information on their phone, and they can start deleting stuff off their iCloud. This prevents that.
So you secure the phone, you secure the vehicle on the tow truck, and then where did you and Sergeant Mechanic go from there?
We follow the tow truck from the address in Dayton to the Canton Police Department. We're secured in the Sallyport Bay.
And if you know approximately what time was it that you arrived at the Canton Police Department and secured the defendant's vehicle in the Sallyport Bay?
Yep, so we left Dayton around 4:16 p.m. and arrived in Canton at the police department at approximately 5:31 p.m.
And with reference to the Canton Police Department's Sallyport garage, why was the vehicle taken there?
Um, I wasn't part of that decision, but it's my understanding that it was a heated facility. The other options were, I believe, the barracks in Milton, but that's not large enough to house a vehicle that size, and it's not heated.
And in regard to the heated, what was the sort of purpose or utility of storing it in a heated setting?
Miss Reed's vehicle was covered with snow and ice at the time. It was transported from Dayton to Canton.
And with regard to the Sallyport garage area of the Canton Police Department, at some point were you inside that area?
Yes.
And what, if any, observations did you make as far as the temperature or the heating within that facility?
I don't remember the exact, I couldn't put like a ballpark on temperature, but it was certainly warmer than outside.
Now, as far as the vehicle was concerned, either on scene, either in Dayton or at the Sallyport garage, or at any point in time that you were in the presence of that vehicle, what, if any, contact did you have? What, if anything, did you do or observe Sergeant Mechanic to do with regard to that damaged area you described on the right rear passenger side?
Yeah. Sergeant Mechanic and I never touched any part of that vehicle.
And as far as the moving it from sort of the tow truck into the Sallyport area, how was that accomplished?
The tow truck driver removed it from the tow truck and pulled it into the Sallyport Bay.
Now, as far as prior to leaving that Sallyport area of the garage where the vehicle was, what, if anything, did you and Sergeant Mechanic do with reference to securing that vehicle or coordinating it off in any way, shape?
We tried to set up a perimeter as best we could using caution tape, just kind of sectioned it off with caution tape.
Now, at some point, you leave the Sallyport area, the Canton Police Station, and where did you go from there?
We had a debrief meeting. So there's other troopers. There's troopers at scene on 34 Fairview Road. There's other troopers conducting interviews. So at the end of the night, members of my office met in a conference room at the Canton Police Department to exchange information as far as what everyone had learned throughout the day.
And as far as that meeting is concerned, that's just troopers from your unit, from your office, is that correct?
That's correct.
And so there were no members of the Canton Police Department that were present for that, is that correct?
No, correct.
And do you know why that was?
They had taken a step back from the investigation. They weren't going to participate in any interviews or anything of that nature.
And how was that communicated to you and Sergeant Mechanic?
The best of my recollection was that debrief meeting that we were informed that essentially Canton PD would be taking a step back from the investigation, and that now this is just solely a Norfolk State Police investigation.
So before we get to sort of the debriefing and all that's covered in that, as far as when you're on call, you get a call for any kind of sort of homicide or unattended death or anything like that. You then become what's called a case officer for that investigation. Is that correct?
Correct.
And can you describe for the jury sort of what the duty or the role is of the case officer vis-a-vis the rest of the members of the unit?
So essentially, a case officer is more of a facilitator. You kind of delegate out tasks, coordinate interviews. The case officer isn't the sole decision maker. I have supervisors. I have that we bounce ideas off of. I get feedback from. I also keep them updated. It's a collaborative effort. In each investigation, we're a small office. So when a homicide comes in, everyone essentially drops what they're doing, and we all work on it together. So it's a collective effort to work on these cases. And essentially, a case officer is just kind of the record keeper of all the reports that come in and video that comes in. But when it comes down to decision-making time, it's a group effort.
Now, with reference to that collaborative effort that you were just discussing in this sort of debriefing meeting, so there were other troopers doing other things or other tasks throughout the course of the day of the 29th, correct?
Yes.
And so what was sort of the purpose of or not specifically what was discussed, but in general terms, what was discussed during the course of this debriefing?
The taillight piece is found at 34 Fairview Road by CERT. The one sneaker found at 34 Fairview Road. Interviews conducted, and then Sergeant Mechanic and I also shared everything we had kind of learned throughout the day as well.
And that debriefing meeting, if you know about how long approximately did that take in this case?
I can't recall, maybe half hour, hour.
And so following that meeting, where did you go from there?
Sergeant Mechanic and I had secured some evidence, the clothing from Good Samaritan Hospital, the additional sneaker found at 34 Fairview Road, as well as the taillight pieces discovered at 34 Fairview Road, and Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone and Miss Reed's cell phone, and him and I transported those to the office in Canton.
And when you transported them to the office in Canton, what, if anything, did you do with those items?
The 2 cell phones were given to Trooper Nicholas Garino, and the clothing was laid out on top of butcher paper to dry out in our evidence intake area. And then the bag taillight pieces were set aside in the evidence intake processing area. Sergeant Mechanic and I didn't have access to the permanent evidence locker area, so we just secured them in the temporary intake area.
And that leads me to my next question. As far as the area that you're talking about with regard to the clothing items and the other items that you secured beyond the cell phones, that was in a secure area of your office, is that correct?
Correct.
And by secure, I mean restricted access to the troopers within your unit, correct?
Correct. It's you need a key card, and it's also equipped with an alarm.
Now, following that, as far as these items of evidence and other items of evidence that are seized throughout the course of an investigation, how is it that they go, or what, if anything, is done, if you know, between the time that they go from this temporary storage area to the permanent storage area?
Yeah, I'm not an evidence officer. I never have been. My understanding is once it's in the evidence processing area, it gets put into the permanent evidence room that only, like I said, two troopers and a detective lieutenant have access to. And it's the evidence officer's responsibility to process that material when they see fit.
Now, sir, if I could turn your attention to February 1st of 2022. Were you working in regard to this investigation on that date as well?
Yes.
And at some point, did you have occasion to go back to the Canton Police Department, specifically in the Sallyport Garage area?
I did.
And what was the purpose of you going out to the Sallyport Garage on that?
Pursuant to a search warrant, we were processing Miss Reed's Lexus SUV.
And when you say we, who, if anyone else, was present with you, or who, if anyone else, did you contact in reference to the processing pursuant to that search warrant of the defendant's vehicle? So
we had a chemist from the State Police Lab, Ms. Maureen Hartnett, as well as a trooper from Crime Scene Services, Trooper Zachary Clark. And then later in the day, the accident recon team, Trooper Joe Paul, had arrived as well.
Now, if I could just ask you a couple questions in regard to Crime Scene Services section. Can you describe for the jury sort of what their role is in regard to investigations that you do and how they're sort of contacted?
So in any scene, if it's required for it to be documented, Crime Scene Services will arrive. They'll document the scene with photographs. In more serious situations, in a homicide, for instance, they'll actually take video as well as dust fingerprints.
Now, with respect to this particular investigation, there were a number of different areas or different times when Crime Scene Services was contacted to document things, correct?
Yes.
And that would include a Good Samaritan when you observed injuries to Mr. O'Keefe?
Correct.
That would include the autopsy that was performed to Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes.
That would include February 1st in the Sallyport Garage when the search warrant was executed on the defendant's vehicle?
Correct.
That would include subsequent searches that occurred at Fairview Road, is that correct?
Yes.
And with respect to each of those instances, if you know, was it ever the same trooper from Crime Team Services section that came out and memorialized each of those respective areas?
Yeah, it was a different trooper each time.
And is that something that you or any member of your unit has any control over whatsoever as far as who shows up from Crime Team Services to memorialize or document a scene?
No.
Now, with respect to the search warrant execution on February 1st, what I want to ask is between the time that you were in the garage on January 29th, 2022, and the time that you're there for the search warrant execution on February 1st, had you been in that Sallyport area of the Canton Police Station at any time in between?
No.
Now, with respect to the taillight area on the passenger side of the defendant's vehicle, what, if any, differences or what, if any, things you note sort of between your observations of the taillight on the 29th versus your observations on February 1st?
Yes.
Yeah, the only difference from
Exactly.
the 29th to the 1st was snow and ice had melted from the taillight.
So as far as the condition of that particular taillight, was it in essentially the same condition that you observed it on the 29th when you observed it on the 1st?
Yes, it was still broken and large pieces missing from it.
But as far as the broken status of it and the pieces that were missing, was it any more broken or any more pieces missing from it when you saw it on the 1st versus when you saw it on the 29th?
No.
Because Proctor's the
And
one to
with
get to that
respect,
info. You
to
dumbass.
the taillight housing for that vehicle on that particular day, what, if anything, happened with it on that day, if you know?
The state police chemist, Miss Hartnett, had it removed, which she brought to the lab herself.
So she had it removed it herself, and then physically took it with her when she left to the lab?
Yeah, it was with the assistance of a Canton police officer who had an auto body shop, so he's kind of well versed in cars, so he was able to assist the chemist with removing the housing unit.
Now, at any point in time on that day of February 1st, 2022, did you come into contact physically or otherwise with that tail light? Did you handle it in any way, shape, or
No.
form? Your Honor, if I may, with the court's permission, I would request to publish. Give me one moment, Your Honor. If I may have one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
My apologies, Your Honor. With the court's permission, if I could publish a portion of Exhibit 34,
Okay.
the Sallyport video. Ms. Gilman, if I could have from February 1st, 2022. At approximately 9:12 a.m. You can just pause it right there. Okay. Your Honor, if I may, it may be easier and more visible with this particular video with the lights on.
Okay,
Try that.
sure.
Trooper Proctor, directing your attention to what's up on the screen is Exhibit 34. Do you recognize what's depicted on the screen?
Yes, that's the Sallyport area Canton Police Department and Miss Reed's Lexus kind of roped off with yellow caution tape.
And this is the execution of that search warrant that you were speaking about before, as far as your presence and some of the other members of the state police and the state police lab that you were talking about.
Correct.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could run from here.
So can you not see this picture even that much better than what we were seeing it earlier? So if they've got it cleared up to this point, why can't they go back and do the same thing when Proctor was standing there? Like you can, this is a lot clearer than that black mess they showed us earlier. So how come they can't use the view of Proctor standing right here? And why are people going underneath that tape?
So while this is going, if I could just ask a couple questions as far as people within this video, do you recognize anyone in this video?
Yeah, myself, kind of the top of the screen. Trooper Zach Clark, we the one with the camera taking photographs of the vehicle.
Now, with reference to this video from the Sally Port Garage of the Canton Police Department, what, if anything, did you learn over the course of this in regard to how that video is recorded or how it's, what, if anything, sort of activates that video?
Objection.
Ask it differently, Mr. Lowe.
As far as this video is concerned, is this one continuous time frame that we're looking at, or how is it?
Objection.
Sustained.
My understanding, it's motion
That
active.
means you can't answer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You can ask a different.
I'm not sure there was anything said.
Oh, right. I'll strike if there was anything.
Oh.
But Mr. Lally, just ask a question, please.
With respect to this video, as far as the recording is set up, how is that activated, or how does it record?
Objection. Same question.
Yeah. How does he know that? So
Exactly.
it's sustained.
Have you watched this video or other videos from the Canton Police Department, Sally Port Garage?
Yes.
What, if anything, did you note with regard to timing? As far there is a timestamp on the video, is that correct?
Yes.
And what, if anything, did you note with regard to the timestamp on this video or the other videos that you observed with regard to how time moves throughout the video?
The timestamp on the video tends to pause, indicating it's motion activated.
Last
It tends to pause. I'll strike that.
Still going to be running to about 9:24.
What is this proving? That they're taking pictures? Yeah,
Ms. Gilman, you can take that.
yeah,
Thank you very much.
I did. Yes,
Now, Trooper,
very
with
much.
regard to that taillight that was then taken by Ms. Hartnett to the lab, is that correct?
Yes.
And at some point, that was returned to the custody of the state police, your detective unit.
Correct.
And do you have that taillight?
I think
housing,
Jackson's
with you
gonna
today in court?
I
Go
do.
at 'em.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, if the trooper could retrieve that.
Okay?
Yep.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Probably be easier that way. Sir, you can stay right there.
Sit down, Proctor.
Handing you an item, sir. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what do you recognize that?
That's the, I recognize that to be the housing unit.
And as far as you're recognizing of the housing unit, is there any sort of denotation or anything on the outside of that box indicating what's contained therein?
There's a State Police Crime Lab sticker with the number associated with it. It also indicates fragile and evidence tape that is initialed and dated as well when it's sealed up. And it's, the sticker also says passenger side TA, indicating taillight.
Thank you, sir. Your Honor, with the court's permission, I would would seek to admit and introduce that as the next exhibit.
Do you want it out of the box first, Mr. Jackson?
We could just take a quick look.
Sure.
Sure.
With the court's permission, if the
Yes.
The thing is if Proctor got to this proves nothing. This proves nothing. Like if he messed with the housing like it or the light like it looked like, then this means nothing. We want to see it before this guy got to the housing and to the light period. Why did you just put that packaging where he did? Considering the bag's unsealed. Tony. What are you doing to Chook, Maxie? Yeah, if he did the damage when he was standing behind, this is exactly what they're going to have. But this is not the way it looked in the pictures. This is not how it looked.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
And Trooper, you can go ahead and put that back in the box. Thank you very much.
That's it. Okay.
Put it on the bag. We need to mark that. And we're going to mark it twice, folks. We're going to mark the bag within the box and we'll mark the box as well.
Yes, because everybody needed to know that tidbit. Her numbering system,
I'm sorry, Trooper, if you could.
I don't know how anyone will keep track of it.
Sorry, hold on. Hold on. So it's going to be 544 and 544.
Good question, Tony. Good question.
You know what I mean? Inquire, is the A the light and the 44 is the bag?
We're not even putting it right on the light because it's broken.
Understood.
So we're putting 544 on
Wow.
the bag, 544A on the box.
Understood. Thank you.
Hold on, you put that on the bag, please, sir.
Yeah, I know, Lucy. You screwed up the numbering system at the very, very beginning. She went on her own little, what did she say? Oh, we don't need numbers. Just go, Mr. Jackson. And then everything has ended up completely screwed up. I've never seen this happen in 14 before.
544A. Thank you.
Yeah, well said, James.
Trooper, with respect to that item that's just been marked as evidence, is that essentially the condition that you observed it in both on January 29th and February 1st?
Yes.
Yes.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could ask just to publish what's been marked as Exhibit 147.
Okay.
Trooper Proctor, do you recognize what's up on the screen that's been marked as Exhibit 147?
Yes.
What do you recognize as?
Oh, Lord,
That is
you already
the
stopped,
right
right?
taillight of Miss Reed's Lexus SUV. And you can see large pieces of it are missing.
Do you remember that photo at the very beginning?
Observed it both on February
I
1st,
do.
As well as January 29th, obviously minus the snow and the ice.
Yeah, minus the snow and ice, sir, yes.
But thanks for stopping in. Stop.
Mr. Newman, you can take that down, Mr. Officer. You can put the lights back up. Thank you. Now, if I could turn your attention to February 3rd of 2022. In the morning hours of that date, where did you go in regard to this investigation?
Sergeant Mechanic, Trooper David Achico, and myself went to 34 Fairview Road along with Trooper Evan Brandt from Crime Scene Services to essentially dig out the snow in pursuit for more evidence.
Now, as far as you mentioned, as far as dig out the snow in pursuit of other evidence, what, if any, tools or implements did you and the other troopers bring with you in order to effectuate that on February 3rd?
We just had kind of standard snow shovels.
And with respect to that, as far as going back to 34 Fairview Roads, and let me clarify as far as that's concerned. Prior to that date of February 3rd, 2022, had you been to 34 Fairview Road at any point in time in the course of your investigation?
No.
So that morning of February 3rd, that's the first time that you went?
Correct.
Now, with respect to, is that, how many times did you go to the area of 34 Fairview Road over the course of the next sort of days and weeks in regard to potential recovery of items?
So February 3rd, I retrieved items on the 8th, the 11th, and 18th, and was out there on the 10th with Sergeant Mechanic as well.
Now, as far as any of those occasions that you just described, that you went to the area of 34 Fairview Road, on any of those occasions, were you by yourself?
No.
And with respect to those other occasions, what type of people or who was with you? I know you've mentioned on the 3rd, but beyond the 3rd, those other occasions that you described, who was with you?
On the 18th, I believe it was Trooper DeChico, based on the handwriting on the evidence bag, kind of recognized his handwriting. In the other 2 dates, I don't recall who was out there with me.
Now, with respect to items that were located, starting with the 3rd, do you recall specifically what, if any, items were located on the 3rd?
We located a black drinking straw, consistent with the one seen in the waterfall video of Mr. O'Keefe walking out of the bar holding the glass. We located his hat that had the American flag that was deep underneath the snow. As we were digging, we discovered that. We further discovered other pieces of plastic as well.
Now, as far as these return trips on
BS.
successive dates to 34 Fairview Road, what was the reasoning behind that, or what was sort of the plan in reference to why were there so many different dates that you returned to 34 Fairview Road with other troopers?
So after the 29th, there was close to 2 feet of snow that had fallen. And in the days and weeks that had followed, the temperatures ranged from 30 degrees up to 60 degrees. And there was about a half a dozen days mixed in of, heavy rain. So as the snow started to melt, more evidence started to present itself.
So there were items that you recovered on the 3rd, and then items you recovered on successive dates that weren't visible or you didn't see on the 3rd, correct?
Correct.
Now, if I could,
There was not much
keeping you
snow
on
when they
February
got
3rd, you
there.
mentioned that there was
They had a better
Evan
chance
Brent,
of finding
that
it
was present
then.
with you, during the search on that day as well.
They found
Yes.
the little pieces, not
Now,
the big
in
pieces.
addition to going to
Oh, yeah.
34 Fairview Road, where else did yourself and Trooper Brent go on that particular day?
We traveled to One Meadows Ave, Mr. O'Keefe's residence.
And is that the first time that you had been to One Meadows Ave or Mr. O'Keefe's residence?
Yes.
Now, with respect to that residence, why is it that you and Trooper Brent went there on February 3rd?
We wanted to document Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle to show that there's no damage to it, as well as the garage doors.
And why did you want to document that?
During the review of Mr. O'Keefe's ring video, particularly the one above the garage that displays the driveway, on the 29th at approximately 5:07 a.m., Miss Reed's pulling her vehicle out of the garage door, backing up towards Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle, and comes extremely close, if not slightly hitting the vehicle. So we wanted to at least go document that there was no damage to Mr. O'Keefe's car.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could publish that for the jury as far as what's been marked as Exhibit 6, video 153.
Okay.
Unreal. Oh, I hope we get to see him go after this guy.
Trooper Proctor, with regard to this ring video, how was this obtained, if you know?
So we first observed it through Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone on the Ring app, and then I wrote a search warrant for Ring itself.
And as far as the videos that you received from Ring, did they match what was on or what was viewable being the Ring app on Mr. O'Keefe's cell?
The videos on Mr. O'Keefe's app, yes, it was what Ring produced, matched.
So as far as any videos that were present that you received pursuant to the search warrant, or any videos that were not present, that was consistent with what you observed on Mr. O'Keefe's app on his phone?
Yes.
Now, Ms. Gilman, if you could press play through here. Now, Trooper Proctor, with regard to this video, you've seen this before, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, at the point from this video, are you able to discern who the operator of that vehicle is?
Based off the attire, Miss Reed driving.
Now, with respect to
When did we see her get in the
when that
vehicle?
vehicle, the defendant's vehicle, if you could, there's a laser pointer up there in front of you on the desk. If you could, I would just ask you to draw the jury's attention to what, if any, vehicles you observe in this video and whose vehicles you believe them.
Based on how she's dressed, she didn't.
So right there, it's Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle and
didn't see that.
Miss Reed's vehicle.
Now, as far as when those vehicles come close or come into contact with each other, as far as Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle is concerned,
Bad
what, if anything,
blizzard.
did you observe, like, on Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle?
There's some snow you see on the back window here, the bumper and the windows here is starting to be covered in snow.
And as far as when that vehicle comes close to or makes contact with Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle, what, if anything, do you observe the snow come off of the car at that point?
Yep.
I do not know.
Now, with reference to the back area of Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle, specifically in the area of the ground, as far as that area on the ground, what, if anything, did you observe in reference to any
Yeah.
pieces or
I
anything,
mean,
taillight or plastic or glass or anything in that area that you observed?
it looks intact.
So this area here is, you can see the white snow. There's no red pieces of taillight, which would show up in the contrast of the white snow.
Ms. Dillon, if you could run it from there for a moment. Now, as far as the damage area that you were discussing previous that you observed in the
Do you guys see
January
anything?
29th in the Sally Port, February 1st in the Sally Port, and then the item that was just marked as evidence. What, if anything, do you observe in the right rear passenger side taillight area of the defendant's vehicle from this video?
Yeah. do
You
tell.
can see the inconsistent lighting. If you compare it to the left versus the right, there's a gap right there.
But you can't see that
What
on
you
the other
observed
side
from that
because it's
video,
on
does
the
that
other
appear to be
side.
Consistent with what you observed on January 29th at the Canton Police Department, February 1st, and in the item of evidence that was just marked.
Yes.
You can't. You're right.
Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. Mr. Officer,
Oh.
lights back on, thank you.
It was on the other side. You couldn't see that. Oh my
Now,
God.
sir, you proceeded to Meadows Ave for the first time on February 3rd, is that correct?
Correct.
And Trooper Brent from Crime Scene was with you and took some photographs, is that correct?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Yeah. They're going to be able to rip this apart again. Don't forget to smash that thumb if you're new in. Get me into that algorithm. I heard today that YouTube isn't bringing up my channel again.
Trooper, I'm showing you a set of 10 photographs. Ask you to just view those, look up when you're finished.
That's exactly how I feel. Hubby's even choking on this bullshit. That's the sound you hear. All this stuff is gagging him with a shovel.
Trooper, just generally speaking, do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs?
Yes.
And what do you recognize them to?
The front is the first picture is the front door of Mr. O'Keefe's house, and it's also Mr. O'Keefe's Chevy Traverse.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm
Thank
to
you, Tony.
introduce and admit as the next 10 exhibit.
No objection.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like a little bit of the red is missing, but not the amount that they're showing us. I don't think anyways. Shifty look there. Oh, he's got totally shifty eyes.
Thank you.
Exactly, Dandy. Hashtag free Karen
And
Reed.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could just have permission to publish just a few of those photos for the jury.
Okay.
Ms. Steelman, if I could have photograph 7752. Trooper Proctor, do you recognize what's up on the screen? It's now been marked as exhibit 546.
Yes, Mr. O'Keefe's Chevy Traverse vehicle.
And with respect to this particular foreground here, if you could describe to the jury what we're looking at there.
So that is Mr. O'Keefe's driveway. You see two garage doors there that lead into the house. And above those garage doors is the Ring camera.
Now, with respect to the rear of Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle, from your viewing of the video from Exhibit 6, from the Ring video, video number 153, if you could, using that laser pointer, direct the jury's attention to where it is on this vehicle that there's contact, if any, between this Reed's vehicle and Mr. O'Keefe's.
It would have been in this general area here.
And as far as your observations on that date,
What's the, hold on.
May we approach, please?
Okay.
Yeah, that's very true, Christy. Shady cops, that's never a good thing. You know, so far we've pretty much they've caught almost everyone in pretty big lies. Yeah, exactly. And you know, it's what happens. You are allowed to disagree with your opposition's witnesses. I have it in my mind that she is doing whatever she can to steer this into a guilty verdict for Karen. It's just the way it kind of looks to me. Yes. That's right. That's right. And the chunks that are missing originally, like it was almost like a little triangle.
You are unmuted.
Trooper, when you were in the driveway of Mr. O'Keefe's residence on February 3rd, 2022, you had occasion to make observations of Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle, is that correct?
Correct.
And what, if any, damage did you observe to the driver's side rear area of the vehicle?
I didn't observe any significant damage or any damage.
As far as the entirety of the vehicle, that was all photographed on that day by Trooper Frank, is that correct?
Yes.
And memorialized in those photographs that were just presented to you, is that correct?
Correct.
As far as your observations on that day or in those photographs, what, if any, damage did you observe to Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle?
I did not observe any damage.
And Brooke,
Yes.
so there's another 8 photographs that I placed before you. Have you had a chance to review those?
Yes, sir.
And do you recognize what's depicted in those 8 photographs?
Yes.
And what do you recognize those to be?
More photographs of Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle as well as the garage doors.
Madam Mayor, approach.
Yes.
I'll seek to introduce the next 8 exhibits.
No objection.
It was more like a crack. Like it wasn't a massive amount of damage. Even one of their first witnesses said that. Okay, oops. Oops.
It's 5:55.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could publish just a few of those to the jury as well.
Okay.
Her hours have completely changed. No, that's okay.
Photograph 7779.
All good. Was it Jen McKay that said it? I think the other girl as well.
Yes.
A friend of John's that did
The rear bumper area of Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle,
That's the driver's side or the passenger side?
the driver's side.
And what, if any, damage did you observe in that area of the vehicle on February 3rd when you were there?
No damage.
Now, with respect.
That's the one, Carrie Roberts.
7780. Next one, actually.
And
So
she is the
on
most
screen and what's now been marked as exhibit 5.
reliable witness.
Yes, those are the 2 garage doors of Mr. O'Keefe's house.
And what's contained up on that screen, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed in Mr. O'Keefe's garage doors on February 3rd?
Yes.
And with respect to those garage doors, what, if any, damage did you note or observe on those garage doors at any point when you were there on February 3rd?
I did not observe any damage to the garage doors.
Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. Trooper Proctor, subsequent dates following February 3rd, specifically February 8th, 11th, and 18th. Did you have occasion to return to 34 Fairview Road on those days?
I did.
And you had mentioned a little bit about sort of changes in the weather. What, if anything, sort of evolved as far as the weather was concerned between the dates of February 3rd when you were there and February 8th, 11th, and 18th?
Yeah, as I mentioned, the weather pattern had kind of fluctuated from 30 degrees up to 60 degrees with a handful of days of heavy rain mixed in. So that caused a lot of snow to melt as well.
And with respect to each of those respective days of February 8th, 11th, and 18th, what, if anything, did you observe or recover, you and the other troopers that were present on those days?
Yeah, it was further evidence that was originally buried under the snow because of the warm temperature and the rain and the snow melting kind of revealed itself. More pieces of plastic, clear and red.
Now,
So
with
if it was
respect to the
in that
residents at
snow-
34 Fairview Road, each of these times that you were at the residence, including February 3rd,
It wasn't.
where in
there
relation to
when
the
this
house were
happened.
these items observed and recovered by you and the other troopers on those respective days?
So if you're looking at 34 Fairview, looking at the front of the house, it's to the left side of the property between like the flagpole and kind of the fire hydrant in that general area, the front and left of the property.
Now, with regard to these three subsequent dates, as far as February 8th, 11th, and 18th, these items that were observed and recovered on those dates, where were they in relation to the roadway? Where were they in relation to the hydrant, the flagpole, other sort of markers in the
I don't specifically remember exactly if they were around the flagpole because the CERT team had came and shoveled an area around. So that stuff had melted first because there was a lot less snow and then they created more piles. But as far as the general area was by the flagpole and fire hydrant, it wasn't like on the other side of the property. It was in that general area.
And just with respect to those items, were they generally found or were they specifically found either on the grass or the roadway area?
Grass.
Asphalt or grass is basically what I'm asking.
I'm sorry, grass area.
And with regard to each of those items that were recovered on those three successive dates, as far as February 8th, 11th, and 18th, did you bring those items with you to court today as well?
I did.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
You recognize that bag, sir?
I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
It's an evidence bag containing 3 smaller evidence bags.
No gloves?
And with the court's permission, if you could,
Hold on a second.
Thank you.
I apologize.
Go ahead.
Lordy.
With the court's permission, may the witness remove the 3 smaller bags from the larger bag?
Yes.
Yes. I sure have to ask her permission for a lot of things. I don't recall that being normal either.
If I could just, in succession, if I could ask you to please open the bag with respect to February 8th first. And before you do that, I apologize again. With respect to that bag, what, if any, indication is there as to the contents there?
It says taillight, 1 large piece of plastic, color red, 1 small piece of red plastic, and 1 piece of black plastic. Located 34 Fairview Road, front lawn, left side.
Thank you, sir. If you could please remove those.
Right, James? I've never seen such a shite show. Then you got the old bag of yeah, I gotta watch every single move of every single individual. Yeah. Amazing, right? Ooh, two pieces of plastic. And that crowd goes wild.
I'm off the seat introducing you.
Is it 563?
Sir, if I could ask you just to retrieve the bag that's marked, retrieve the bag of items that were seized on February 11th. And if you could read to the jury what the description is in regard to that evidence bag.
So it's 2 on the 11th. This one is described as glass fragments. Can't tell how many pieces. It's been taped over. The second bag from the 11th says 3 pieces of clear plastic, 5 pieces of red plastic.
And with the court's permission, may the witness remove those items from the bag.
Right?
He's doing it either way, right? Yeah, apparent. This is exactly what I think, Christy. So where is that stuff? Because if that happened with all of the red DNA that was there, it would be all over these taillights, right? It's just like, what? It blows me away. We don't seem to have any. Nothing we've heard. Isn't it, though?
Smaller bag in here containing the glass. Cut that open as well.
No.
That's sufficient.
All right, so Madam Clerk, are you moving to introduce it?
Yes.
Madam Court Reporter, any objection? We can go ahead and
I
open
want
it.
to object, but I don't know what's in that thing.
Go ahead and open it.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. These items appear to be just further on sealed up and wrapped up and
Do we really need?
Do you want him to open every one, Mr. Jackson?
Yeah, approach.
Yes.
I can't see that far.
All right, Christy. Oh, yes, that blizzard, right? Oh, my word.
All right, so go
I
ahead.
don't need a moment.
It is such an ish show.
No objection.
How many pieces are in there?
1, 2, 7.
Unreal. Yeah, she is, isn't she? Yeah, she basically is keeping everything going with her judge bouncing all over the place.
The smaller bag will be 564.
Thank you.
The brown bag will be 564. And
The blue lady. That she is.
Back from the 11th, if you could open that up and remove those items.
Right just finished reading that now. I should know better. There wasn't that much missing. That's the thing. This is where we run into problems. This is not what we have seen or had described to us until this. I don't understand.
Your Honor, call multiple seats introduced and admitted as the next exhibit.
So if something was going to stick to that vehicle, why wouldn't it be plastic instead of a piece of glass that they can't identify?
Lastly, sir, with regard to the fact from February 18th, again, if you could read to the jury what's indicated as far as the contents therein.
Yeah, 100.
Several pieces of red and clear plastic.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, may the witness read
Yes.
the items.
First time opening a bag, sir? It's true. Court reporter, maybe? Yeah, no. You see, I'm just not buying this.
Turn those items to the back.
No DNA on them.
Your Honor, the call multiple seats admitted as the next exhibit.
No objection.
Right?
Exhibit 566.
Court clerk? That makes sense.
Now, Trooper, with regard to each of those items from February 8th, 10th, and 11th, excuse me, forgive me, 8th, 11th, and 18th, those are all items that you recovered from the front lawn area of 34 Fairview Road. Is that correct?
Correct.
And what was just displayed to the jury is that essentially the condition that they were in when you recovered them on those respective days.
Yes.
Now, if I could turn your attention just briefly regarding the search warrants in regard to the ring video from Mr. O'Keefe's house. Was that one search warrant or more than one search warrant that you did in respect to those ring videos?
There was a second search warrant for the ring videos for Mr. O'Keefe's house.
And if you recall, what was the general time frame that was asked for in that warrant as far as from what date to what date?
The second one, I believe, was January 30th to the 3rd or the 4th, I believe.
Was the first one essentially from the 24th to the 29th?
Yes.
Now, with respect to the video that you received in regard to the first search warrant to ring, what kind of information did you receive from Ring as far as what beyond sort of the video itself? What, if any, other information did you receive as far as accounts or activity or anything like that?
It was just confirming that the user account was under Mr. O'Keefe's email, and then there was an Excel file where you kind of have to transcribe. So each video has about a 17-digit number associated with it, unique identifier. You take that 17-digit number and you got to convert it using these Excel files to get the date and time.
Now, with respect to what you received pursuant to the search warrant from Ring, was there any kind of activity log? And what I mean by that, what, if any, information did you receive as far as what sort of devices or how many different devices were able to access that that footage?
Yeah, I wasn't able to obtain a activity log of who was using the device, what device was accessing the system.
What?
Something, if someone logged in, was not provided with any record of who was logging in on what day or time.
What?
Now, are you familiar with the term, just as far as videos are concerned, or electronic devices, what's referred to as a digital footprint?
Yes.
Now, with respect to some of these, or the Ring videos in totality that you received and that you also viewed pursuant to the app on Mr. O'Keefe's phone, were there certain time periods where you would have expected to see video in which there was no?
Yes.
And can you describe for the jury sort of when those time periods were?
So the Ring camera above Mr. O'Keefe's garage, pretty sensitive, so it does not have Miss Reed arriving back at Mr. O'Keefe's house around 12:34 a.m. is when she should have arrived. The only video, there's a gap from approximately 11:45 p.m. on the 28th to about 5:07 a.m. on the 29th when Miss Reed's backing out. It never has her pulling into the garage. And there's also a second video of Miss Roberts, Miss McCabe, and Miss Reed looking at the broken taillight in the morning.
What, if any, follow-up or inquiry did you make of Ring in regard to those missing videos?
I inquired several different times as far as if a video is deleted, is there some type of a record?
That was his inquiry, but next question, I'll allow that.
Now, as far as that term that you used before, as far as a digital imprint, can you explain to the jury what you understand that term to mean?
Essentially, a digital footprint is if a video is created, it's going to leave some type of a record in the archives.
And what, if any, information did you receive from Ring as far as their videos system is concerned in regard to a digital footprint?
Objection.
Not what anybody told you, but what you received.
That if a video is deleted,
Objection.
The objection sustained.
Move to strike.
We're going to strike that.
Good job, Jack.
Upon your further inquiry of Ring, were you ever able to obtain any video from those specific sections where you anticipated video would be?
no.
So it's going to be Jackson. Nice. Nice.
Now, sir, if I could turn your attention to January 16th, 2024. Do you recall that date?
I do not, sir.
At some point over the course of your investigation, were you made aware of forensic evidence in relation to the taillight housing that was introduced earlier as an exhibit?
Yes.
And with respect to that, at some point, did you have occasion to meet with a Sergeant Brian Gallerani of the Needham Police Department?
Yes.
And where was that?
In the DA's office.
And who, if anyone else, involved in this investigation as far as yourself, was Sergeant Mechanic with you there as well?
Yes.
And what, if anything, did Sergeant Gallerani do with respect to yourself and Sergeant Mechanic on that date in January of 2024?
Sergeant Mechanic and I voluntarily provided our DNA for comparison testing.
And again, taking me to my next point, that was a voluntary decision that both you and Sergeant Mechanic made as far as availing yourself or availing of that particular testing.
Correct.
And as far as the testing or this, you know how that was, or can you describe for the jury sort of how that sample was collected or how it was conducted?
Essentially, it's just a swab of the mouth under the tongue with like it's basically just like a little pad on a stick, and you get swabbed, and that's how the DNA or saliva is collected.
And as far as those samples that were collected from both yourself and Sergeant Mechanic on that particular day, where did they go from there as far as you know?
It was my understanding went to the Bodie lab in Virginia.
And I'm sorry, what I should have asked just prior to that, as far as when they left from the room that you were in with Sergeant Gallerani, did you take those swabs, or did Sergeant Gallerani take those swabs,
No.
or where did they go?
Sergeant Gallerani took possession of those items.
Thank you. Now, sir, with reference, over the course of your investigation, you interviewed a number of different witnesses, correct?
Yes.
And from the witnesses that you, were there witness interviews that were conducted outside of your presence in the sense that you weren't there for those particular witness interviews?
Yes.
And each of the interviews that you're aware of, whether they were conducted by you or outside of your presence, were done, with the exception of the Currans, done with more than one trooper present, correct?
Correct.
Now, with respect to those witness interviews that you were present for, from the witnesses that you spoke with, along with other troopers that were present with you, who, if any, of those witnesses had you met, or were you did you know prior to the interview that you conducted?
Yeah, so all the witnesses that I had interviewed, the only individuals that I know or had met prior to this investigation was Julie, Chris Albert, and Colin Albert.
And how is it that you knew Julie Albert, Christopher Albert, and Colin?
So my sister, Courtney, her friend growing up, Jillian. Jillian's sister's Julie. My sister got to know Julie Albert, Julie Daniels is her maiden name, through her friend Jillian. Julie married Chris Albert. So my sister got to know Chris through Jillian and Julie. And then years down the road, my sister had Julie babysit my nephew. Julie would come from time to time and pick up my nephew from school. So that's how they kind of became friendly. And on occasion, they would be over my sister's house or at my parents' backyard, Julie and Chris and their kid Colin, and I would happen to be there.
Let me ask it this way: as far as where did you grow up?
Canton.
And did you graduate from Canton High School?
Yes.
And as far as any of the witnesses that you interviewed, even the Alberts that you were just talking about, Christopher, Julie, and Colin Albert, were they around the same ages as you, or went to high school with you at the same time?
No.
How much older than you would Julie and Chris Albert?
At least 10 years.
And as far as Colin Albert, what's the age difference between yourself and him?
At least 20.
Fair to say around this time of January 2022, do you know how old Colin was, or what level of school he was at that point?
It was senior in high school, I believe.
Is that something that you learned through this investigation, or something that you knew independently?
Something I learned through this investigation.
Now, obviously, you grew up in Canton, and your sister did as well.
Yes.
And your sister's name is Courtney, is that correct?
Correct.
And what is the age difference between yourself and your sister Courtney?
She's 2 years older than me.
And how close are you and your sister?
She's probably one of my best friends. We talk about 5-6 times a day about anything and everything, as far as like mostly our children.
That's weird. That's really weird.
She has, how many children does your sister have?
You got 2.
And about how old are they?
10 and 7.
And you have children as well?
I do.
And how old?
Exactly, Chris.
2 and 4.
Now, with respect to the conversation that you have with your sister about 5 or 6 times a day, how do you have those conversations? Is it via voice call, or in person, or text, or if you know?
Isn't it?
Everything. FaceTime, phone calls, text messages. We're always kind of keeping each other up to date on mainly our kids.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
Now, as far as
Your sister? Like what?
Julie and Christopher Albert, when did you interview them in relation to this incident?
That's weird.
Sometime in February. I'd have to look at my report for the exact date.
Sometime in, say, early to mid-February?
Yes.
And with respect to them, who, if anyone else, was present with you when you interviewed?
Sergeant Buchanan.
And do you recall where the interview took place?
Yes, it was at their home.
Now, prior to this date that you went over to interview Christopher and Julie Albert, had you ever been over to that house before?
No,
Had you ever been over to any home where Christopher and Julie Albert had resided then or previously prior to that date?
no,
Had Christopher or Julie Albert, to your knowledge, ever been over to your house?
no.
Now, with respect to Christopher and Julie Albert, and Colin Albert, will throw him in there as well, how would you sort of describe your relationship with them prior to January 29th, 2022?
I'd classify it as acquaintances.
All right. Mr. Lally, why don't we take our luncheon break?
And there you go. Right in the middle of testimony.
You are muted.
Oh my word. She doesn't seem to be in the best frame of mind at this point, does she?
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
Wonder if she got a little put off earlier.
Council approach. Sure. Council?
She's having, it's a late lunch. Like it's 2:00 there. Oh, that's scary. No, no, no. No, she has bad juju, Tony. So I'm assuming it's just going to be the half hour again today. I didn't hear where she was changing that. We'll see what I think we're caught up. Oh, okay. You're so right. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, I'm imagining it's not going to be too much longer. Good catch. So, let's see here. What'll I do? I'll turn on some music and wait for them to come back. I don't imagine it's going to be too long. Okay, and we're back.
Goes back to session, you may be seated.
I totally forgot I had bumped it up because Proctor came on.
Bring the witness in, please.
Lots on my noodle.
Just be mindful to step up and just remember you're still in.
So, jurors, before we begin, Mr. Lally, as you approach the podium there, when I tell you that I strike something from the record, I know I've told you before, that means you're not to consider it, okay? Go ahead, Mr. Lally.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
So, with reference to, I believe before we broke, we were talking a bit about Julie Albert and Christopher Albert, correct?
Yes.
And how would you describe your relationship, if any, between Julie Albert and Christopher Albert prior to January 29, 2022?
Loose acquaintances?
People that you knew through your sister, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, with reference to the occasions that you had said where you may have been at the same place at the same time at a family function or something like that, over what period of time are we talking about, and about how many different instances of that occurred over those years?
Like I had mentioned, they had never been to my house. It was either at my sister's home or at my parents' house. Over the course of maybe 10 years, I might have been at the same function half a dozen times.
And at those times that you were at the same function a half a dozen times or so, how much interaction would you have with either Christopher Albert or Julie Albert or even Colin Albert at those functions?
Just casual conversation, be cordial, and just typical conversations, hi, how's it going, things of that nature.
Now, with reference to these experiences or relationships, or lack thereof, that you had with Christopher and Julie Albert, what, if any, conversations did you have with your supervisors as far as superior officers within your unit in regard to
I explained the connection with my sister to the Albert family.
And who did you explain that to?
That would be Sergeant Mechanic, Lieutenant Fanning, and Detective Lieutenant Tully.
All right, Trooper, I'm going to ask you to keep your voice up. Maybe approach the microphone a little closer.
And just with respect to those disclosures, what specifically did you tell either Sergeant Mechanic or Lieutenant Fanning or Lieutenant Tully?
Basically that the Alberts are my sister's friends, that I've been at some functions with them, and the only kind of connection with the Albert family is through my sister.
And just when you say the Alberts, as far as who specifically within the Alberts are you talking about that had a friendship with your sister?
Julie, Chris, and their son Colin.
Now, with regard to the investigation that you were conducting and the interviews that you conducted, what, if any, impact did those relationships have with regard to your interviews of them specifically, or the investigation in total?
Zero. Absolutely zero impact on this investigation.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Sir, I'm showing you a document. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what do you recognize it to be?
It's a text message thread labeled Proctor Friends.
Now, over the course of your investigation, over the course of this case, are you aware that there were iCloud data that was obtained from your personal cell phone?
Yes.
And different text strings from that iCloud data from your personal cell phone, correct?
Correct.
And with respect to what has just been placed before you, is that an excerpt or piece from those particular messages?
It is.
And from the front page of that, can you tell the jury who are sort of the participants in this particular text communication?
There's several numbers that aren't identified. The three that are under kind of nicknames me and my buddies have for each other.
And generally speaking, just as far as the participants in this text communication, who are these people to you, and how do you know them? How long have you known them? Who are they?
The members on this text thread are close friends from junior high, first grade even.
So people you've known for years, is that correct?
Correct.
And do each of them live, or do any of them live within the general area at this time?
Some of them do, yes.
And so when some of them do, some of them do not, is that correct?
Correct.
And the ones that do not, how far away do they live?
As far as Tennessee.
Now, with reference to this, there's an indication as far as the first message sent or last message sent from this particular text chain, correct?
I'm sorry, repeat the question, please.
Sure. Sort of towards the middle of the first page. Help direct your attention to that area. Is there any indication as far as the first message sent and the last message sent with respect to this text chain?
On the first page, yes.
And what is indicated as far as the first message and the last message?
The first message is, I need to brandish a gun more often. The last is, Chip, name of that BPD cop.
No, I'm sorry, sir. If I could direct your attention to the first page in this packet, page 2527, you see conversation details. Sorry, may I approach?
Yes.
If I could direct your attention to the right.
Okay.
Do you see what I was talking about now?
I do, sir.
And from that area labeled conversation details, there's a first message sent date and time and a last message sent date and time, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What is the first message sent date and time?
It's 10/18 of 2021 at 8:48 a.m. The last message sent is 8/31/2022 at 11:19 p.m.
And is there also within that conversation details an indication as far as number of messages over that time frame within this communication?
There is.
And what does it list for number of messages?
It's 38,707.
And fair to say the packet that you have before you does not contain all 38,707 messages, correct?
That's correct.
The first message that you had, I believe, alluded to in reference to the first one listed within this communication, what date and time is that?
That was January 29th, 2022 at 10:36 p.m.
And who is that message from?
My friend who lives in Tennessee.
And what, if anything, did he send to the group?
I need to brandish a gun more often.
And if you know, what is that in reference to?
He just recently moved to Tennessee, and he was kind of, I think, making a joke as kind of the lifestyle down there where guns are more prominent or more common to be carried around there. So I interpreted that as a joke in that nature.
And the next message, sir, from that same page, 2527.
The next one is it's bold.
And is there a name associated with that number that's in these?
No,
Do you know who that person is?
I don't.
And the next message, sir,
Yeah.
from 10:52 p.m.
Chip, name of that BPD cop.
And Chip, who is that referring to, sir?
That is one of my nicknames I've had since maybe high school.
So a nickname that would be familiar amongst these group of friends in particular?
Yes.
And this time period when these text messages begin, sometime after 10:30 or 10:50 p.m. on January 29th, where are you and what are you doing in reference around that time period?
At this point in time, on the 29th, I'm home.
And that last text message, do you respond to that at approximately 10:53 p.m.?
Yes.
And what was your response?
John O'Keefe.
And the next message down from there, also at 10:53 p.m.?
Yes. He took custody of his sister's kids.
That's your response. There's another response above that. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what does that say?
How old?
And you respond as far as he took custody of his sister's kids, correct?
Correct.
Skipping down a couple, do you see an entry at 10:53:49 p.m.?
Yes.
And that's from a 617 number. Is that correct?
Correct.
And what is the response there?
Oh man, that's rough.
And following that, do you respond to the earlier query as far as age?
I do.
And what did you say?
Mid 40s.
Now, the next message below that, as far as indication of mid 40s, what is that?
His age.
No, I understand that. I'm sorry. The next message underneath that, sir.
I'm sorry. It's a Facebook link.
And do you recall what that Facebook link is to?
It's to John O'Keefe.
And is that something you sent or one of your friends sent?
One of my friends sent.
And the next message below, turning to now page 2529 at the top there. What is the next message that's sent?
What's that? Don't have the book anymore.
And as far as the book, what did you understand that to mean?
Maybe approach.
Sure. a 10-minute break, okay?
Another break? What the hell? Are most of my chats turned on, Andy? I'm not sure. What the hell? She doesn't look pleased. No, you guys, no. Doesn't look happy.
So do you have that copy for me?
All right.
I have no idea. I don't know. Bev obviously didn't like something. Every time she has a little bit of a moment, she's out of there. Trouble in paradise. What'd she say this time? 5 minutes? We just had lunch 15 minutes ago. Wow. Lolly will continue on. Defense will get their turn. And she'll either call a break or say see you on Wednesday. Is my thoughts.
Motion may stay adjourned.
Whoa. Is she on time? Is she on time? Wow. Yeah, right? Wow. It is. It is a miracle. I think that might be the first time ever. The break she shouldn't have had. The break just after the 10-minute break after the 15 minutes of work. She doesn't look very happy. I wish she would just go up there because I do believe that's her right. Bev? Yeah, she is pathetic. Kangaroo court with bias Bev. Come on, I want to know what this is all about. As soon as we see their faces, we'll know they definitely have reactions. Yeah, the FBI, they've been looking at prosecution since before the trial started. I wonder if she reads and sees what people think about her. Yeah. I hope not, really. Because it doesn't make a difference. You know, we can talk about it and we've got our thoughts, and other people have equally as strong thoughts, but on the opposition. And I think that she'd be probably, for her mental health, best to stay away from it. FTP. I don't know what that is. It's a long sidebar. Bev had to go away and think about stuff. No, it doesn't. It wouldn't change anything, and it would just drive a person bonkers. Oh, okay. Okay. Gotcha. I won't repeat that one. Are they coming back? Wow. Ole, ole. I don't think I know what's going on with this. I don't know what the sidebar is about. But it was before, and then she had her little 10-minute break, and now we're back and we've been waiting again. Oh, no. I'd love to see their faces right now, the brother and his wife. Because he's always got like that evil stare going on.
You are
Get the witness
unmuted.
back, please.
Jesse, you mind stepping in, Cooper? You're still on the oath. Speak nice and loud.
Yes, sir.
Mm. Okay, Lolly, come on.
Procedure on?
Yes.
Trooper, if I could direct you back to page 2529 within that packet before you. And below that text stating what's that, I don't have the book anymore. You respond, is that correct?
Yes.
And what is it that you say there?
This one is a nightmare. Forget about the kids. That's awful.
And sir, if I could direct your attention again within that same packet to 2532. And there's a message there sent at 10:56 p.m. Is that correct?
Yes.
And who's that from?
A friend who lives in Tennessee.
And what does he say in that text?
I'm sure the owner of the house will receive some shit.
And you respond at 10:56 as well as 10:57. Is that correct?
Correct.
And what is it that you respond?
My first response was nope. Homeowner is a Boston cop too.
And what, if anything, were you saying, or what was the purpose of that text in regard to the homeowner?
I was just letting him know that essentially Mr. KEEFE is a Boston cop and the homeowner was a Boston cop as well.
Now, if I could turn your attention to 2533. And top of the page, sir, if you could read through that page as far as who's texting and what are they saying?
Again, for my friend from Tennessee and myself, I hope not, but I can't see it. I responded with, she waffled him. I looked at his body at the hospital. He was banged up.
Now, as far as the next text.
Yes, he was.
Mm-hmm.
What does that say?
Did he get beat up?
And you responded to that, is that correct?
I did.
The objection sustained as to form.
What, if any, response did you provide to that?
Nope.
Objection. The objection was to the former question and the answer.
I'll strike it.
Now, turning your attention to 2534. And from this page, sir, if you could, again, just read through as far as indicating to the jury who's speaking and what is being said.
From the start of the first text, so the owner of the house?
Yes.
So the owner of the house was a woman cop that beat him? That's what I initially thought after talking to Keene paramedic. Then I saw the guy.
And those last two are your
The
responses.
guy?
Correct.
Yes.
The guy.
Now, the following text messages are from your friends, is that correct?
Yes.
What do they say?
Bear, let's focus. What does she waffle to mean? What's the story? I responded, she hit him with her car.
And the she that you're referring to there, who is that?
Miss Reed.
Yeah. So he's the first one that
Turning
comes
your
out with
attention to the
that?
next page, 2535. Again, if you could start at the top of the page and read through that page and just indicate to the jury who is talking and what is being said.
Okay. My friend in Tennessee states, okay, that's fucked up. I respond, intentional or not. Then another response, gotcha. He was frozen in the driveway and she didn't see him, question mark. That's another animal we won't be able to prove. And then I respond, they arrived at the house together, got into an argument.
I think we'll speak out loud or out of turn.
The objection's overruled.
Your Honor,
But
if I could say this, there needs to be an identifier of who's
I
speaking.
understand what you think the mix-up is. So, Mr. Lally, go back.
Thank you.
Sir, if you could please, again, start at the top of the page and just indicate.
No,
Adam
just
Gross-
after the, gotcha, he was frozen in the driveway, correct, Mr. Jackson?
That's correct, Your Honor. Thank you.
I respond, that's another animal we won't be able to prove. I follow that up. They arrived at the house together, got into an argument. She was driving and left. 781 number responds with, what's the name of the Canton cop living in Canton, the other one involved.
And how do you
The
respond
what?
to that, sir?
There's several other messages before I issue a response.
Objection again. Bottom of the page.
So it's not an objection, but Mr. Lally, why don't you point him?
So, sir, at the bottom of page 2535, you have a response. Is that correct?
Correct.
And what is that response?
They arrived at the house together, got into an argument. She was driving and left.
Okay.
So it's going to be a matter you can address on cross.
There has to be some accuracy. If the reading
So
is-
I understand. So, Mr. Lally, why don't you go point for your witness?
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Where's your glasses, sir?
Okay.
Where's your glasses?
It's a HTML link, whiteout /Proctor iCloud /group chat Feb 2022.
Oh,
So you point out.
what?
Can I see what you have for a second, please?
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Lally, it's on there. Why don't you go show your witness? Why don't you just read it, Mr. Lally, and tell us who you attribute it to?
Sure. So, sir, what I'm asking you about is the bottom of page 2535, excuse me, 2535. You indicated biffed him, correct?
Correct.
What did you mean by that?
That Miss Reed had struck Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle.
Now, sir, if I could direct your attention to page 2537. Now, do you see a response toward the bottom of the page from yourself, January 29, 2022 at 11:04 p.m.?
Yes.
And can you read that response for the jury?
Yeah, but there'll be some serious charges brought on the girl.
And what did you mean by that, sir?
That throughout the course of the day, we had compelling evidence that Miss Reed struck Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle.
And
Toronto. Number ending in 5051. Got to be, I can only imagine what internal affairs of the BPD are trying to get out there. The second response, same number. She hot at least.
And turning your attention to the next page, 2538, at the top, if you could just read
I agree.
a series of responses from yourself, correct?
Yes, sir.
Read from those, sir.
Yep, so these came from me. From all accounts, he didn't do anything wrong. She's a whack job.
What?
CUNT.
What? What?
So don't spell it. You have to, so these are your words, Trooper Proctor?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead and say them.
What?
Cunt. Yes, she's a babe. Weird Fall River accent, though. Though,
Do it.
no ass.
And sir, what is it that you were referring to there, or why would you text that?
These were, from all accounts, he didn't do anything wrong. Is talking about the homeowner, Mr. Albert. I had mentioned the compelling evidence against Ms. Reed at this point indicated that Mr. Albert had nothing to do with Mr. O'Keefe's death. The rest of the unprofessional and regrettable comments are something I'm not proud of, and I shouldn't have
there
wrote
you go, Furman.
in a private or any type of setting.
Yeah, okay, Furman. We got you now. Go back and read that first sentence.
Sir, at some point, if I could turn your attention to page 2540.
Whoa. Oh.
And there's a photograph that's shared within this text communication. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And does it indicate who shared that photograph? From the prior page, possibly.
Leave the jury with this.
The number ending in 5051.
And who is depicted in that photograph that was shared within the group text?
It's Miss Reed being escorted out of the State Police Milton Barracks.
Absolutely.
And these are all from February 1st of 2022. Or
I don't know
that
if I
time frame, is
can,
that
but
correct?
I'll play
Yes.
catch up.
Now, sir, if I could direct you to page 2543. And sir, if I could direct you to the top of the page and ask you to read through that page, indicating who's speaking and what the content of those
You piece of
communications
shite.
Okay. Number ending in 4146. Question is that chick a smoke? Again, 4146 question mark. I respond EH. I respond again, nut bag, as Chief would say. I also respond with she's got a leaky balloon knot, leaks poo.
What?
And what, if anything, is that in reference to, sir?
Again, to Ms. Reed's some medical conditions there.
What?
Again, unprofessional comments I should not have made, that I'm not proud of.
Oh, you know what? Bullshit. You just got
As far as attitudes expressed within these text messages and other text messages, what, if any, impact did that have as far as your investigation was concerned regarding these?
These juvenile, unprofessional comments have zero impact on the facts and the evidence and the integrity of this investigation. They said these are unprofessional comments, but they absolutely do not detract from the integrity of the investigation or the facts and evidence of it.
Sorry, buddy, you're done.
Yes.
You're done, buddy. I'm surprised that she didn't get him to read that over.
Proctor. Contained within, you've seen text messages amongst yourself and a variety of different people from that same sort of iCloud area of your personal phone, correct?
Correct.
And among those, are there communications that you had with members of the Canton Police Department?
Yes.
And how would you characterize, or what was the general content of communications that you had with members of the Canton Police Department?
One communication was to coordinate interview times for firefighters and police officers and to set up a conference room where those interviews could be conducted. Obviously, the presence of Canton detectives or any police officers were not going to be sitting in on these interviews. Another communication was to inquire of relevant security videos that are in the area. Their local department, they know the area very well, so I reached out and asked if there's some good cameras in the area that I had of kind of interest in.
He should not have been in that position. Oh my God.
Yes.
I'm almost shocked. What a dirty frickin' mouth this dude has.
I'm showing you another document, just ask if you recognize that.
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be, sir?
Text communications between my sister and I.
That's your sister Courtney, is that correct?
That's correct.
And similar to what I'd asked you about the prior packet, as far as a first message sent date and time, last message sent date and time, what is indicated on this first page?
First message sent date time, December 10th, 2021 at 9:33 p.m. Last message sent, 8:30, 2022 at 8:48 p.m.
And 8:30, that's August 30th, is that correct?
I'm sorry, yes, August 30th, 2022.
And similarly to the other messages, is there an indication as far as how many number of messages were sent between yourself and your sister over that time period?
2,865.
And fair to say that the documents in front of you do not contain 2,865 messages?
Correct.
Now, just in reference to the first message on page 2662, the first page in this packet, do you see that from December 10th of 2021 at approximately 9:33 p.m.?
Yes.
And what does that indicate?
A text message from my sister.
And what does it say?
I called earlier, Dolph earlier, and Mom was puking in the background.
And do you recall what that was in regard to?
From the sounds of it, my mother had the stomach bug.
Okay, Wally. Why the silence?
And sir, if I could direct your attention to page 2667.
Oh my God.
And these are text messages from January 29th, 2022, between yourself and your sister Courtney, correct?
Correct.
And if you could read from the top of the page through the end, and please indicate to the jury as far as who's talking and who's saying what.
So I texted my sister at work, "What's up?" She responds, "What? Why?" I respond, "I just found it frozen to death on a front lawn in Canton this morning. Actually just interviewed Jen McCabe, said she knows you."
And the knows you, who are you referring to?
My sister.
And how did your sister respond to that?
Cut the shit. I responded, "You." It was a typo correction with my response to you. She responded, "Yeah, she knows Jack very well. She's really good friends with Julie." My sister continues on. Her sister is married to Brian Albert. My sister asks, "You still working?" ? I says, yeah, going to be out for a while. Homicide.
And as far as your answers to those questions, or as far as your communications that you had with your sister at this time on the afternoon of January 29th, what were those in regard to, or why were you communicating that to your sister?
At that time, it was just kind of in the news. I was just kind of letting her know I was out working. She didn't share anything specific. I wouldn't share anything specific on cases with my family or anyone. It was just kind of an overall innocent conversation.
No, that's what it was.
Now, turning your attention to the next page, 2669. Again, if you could read from that page as far as who is talking and what the content is.
All right. My sister starts off, "The Canton thing is a homicide." I respond, "This is at 3 in the afternoon on the 29th. Don't say a word to anyone." She said, "Of course not." I respond, "In the very least, it's suspicious." She responds, "This is your livelihood." And then I would never miss with that. 3:07, I respond, "Julie and Chris were at the bar with the victim and girlfriend. Got to interview them."
I'd like to direct your attention to page 2672. These are messages from February 1st, 2022, is that correct?
Correct.
And the one at the top starts about February 1st, 5:57 p.m., is that correct?
Yes.
And again, if you could read through as far as who's speaking and what the content of those messages are.
I texted my sister, "What's up?" She responded, "Nothing. Just saw Julie, and she said when this is all over, she wants to get you a thank you gift." And I respond, "Get Elizabeth one." Elizabeth's my wife. And my sister responds, "Because I guess her and Chris were friends with John, and she's so proud of you for leading this." And then she writes, "Elizabeth, question mark?" I respond with, "She's been stuck with the kids for the last 10 nights. My sister responded with, "Yeah, but she knew what life is like married to a cop."
And sir, as far as the gift that's mentioned, as far as Julie Albert, is that anything that you have received at any point in time?
I never received a gift. I never asked for a gift. My wife never received a gift. She never asked for a gift.
This is not over, though, is it?
So
It's
how would you
not over
describe
yet.
this context of this conversation or why that's being discussed at this time?
Again, I don't know the thought process of my sister and Julie as far as bringing that idea of a gift into play. Like I said, I didn't ask for one. I never received one. The same with my wife.
Sir, if I could direct your attention to page 2676. And again, if I could ask you to start at the top of the page and read through and just indicate as far as who is saying, who is speaking and what they're talking.
I start out, "We write like 8 to 12 warrants on each case." My sister responded, "No, I have no idea what the hell you do or how it works." I responded on the 10th at 7:36 p.m. "I'm starving, but I also just want to go home. Thanks, though." My sister responds, "Yeah, but is dinner going to be waiting?" She responded with, "Ha, ha, ha." And then I responded, "Yep." And then my sister responded with, "Okay, it's fine. Mom and I just don't want to go home."
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Mhm.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Another document, sir, do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that?
This is private messages between my wife and I.
Again, what is your wife's name?
Elizabeth.
And what, if anything, does that indicate as far as dates and times and number of messages involved?
Okay, so the first message sent 5/20/2022 at 6:19 p.m. The last message sent 8/31/2022 at 9:16 p.m.
And what, if any, indication does it give as far as number of messages within that text chain?
1,632.
And of those 1,162, there's one message that's listed on that, is that correct?
Correct.
Whoa,
And what is the date and time of that message, and what does it say, and who's speaking?
because that's not weird.
This is me speaking on June 9th, 2022 at 4:56 p.m. I text my wife, "Waiting to lock this whack job up."
And what are you referring to in that text, sir?
I'm referring to the arrest after Ms. Reed was indicted by the grand jury.
And again, as far as the terminology that you use in that text message to your wife, why is that?
Again, unprofessional messages I should not have sent. I don't have an explanation other than they're regrettable and it's something I'm not proud of, the language I used.
Whatever, you're just
Approach to retrieve your-
sorry you
Yes.
got caught. Oh, my.
All right, so Trooper Proctor, the jurors can't hear you. So speak directly into your microphone the way I'm doing, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
I'd like to know the same thing. No apology. Regrettable. Because he got caught. And like you said, what are they leaving out? Because this guy's obviously a dickwad. I mean, come on.
Maybe approach on this one.
Okay.
Can you imagine? Look at how he was talking about her for someone he doesn't know. Wow. And he didn't apologize. Regrettably is not an apologize or an apology, I guess, right?
Unmuted.
Unmuted. Here we go.
Now, Trooper Proctor, you're familiar with conversations that within these same text communications from your personal phone with colleagues of yours at the state police?
Yes.
And Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Sorry. May I have a moment with counsel?
Okay.
Thank you. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
Showing you an comment on the document, sir. Before I get into that, though, if I could turn your attention back to some of the comments on the language used in the January 29th and February 1st or 2nd text communications among your friend group. With reference to that particular time frame in the language that you used, what sort of information had you gathered to that point, and why would you say or use that particular language in your, particularly in your descriptions of the defendant?
So this is, 16, 18 hours later, and we conducted multiple interviews.
Speak up.
Conducted multiple interviews. We knew Mr. O'Keefe never went into Fairview Road. We knew there was one shoe at the scene, one shoe at the hospital. Mr. O'Keefe's, based off Mr. O'Keefe's injuries, Miss Reed's statements when Sergeant Buchanan and I interviewed her, her broken taillight, the missing taillight, some taillight pieces found at the scene, the compelling evidence pointing directly at Miss Reed that she struck Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle led me to make those comments. Whether, like I said, they weren't professional comments, but based on the day's investigation, it was clear that Miss Reed had struck Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle.
What?
Sir, if I could turn your attention to the documents before you, do you recognize those?
I do.
And as far as the participants in that particular conversation, who were the participants listed there?
It's Trooper David DeChico and myself.
And Trooper DeChico and yourself both worked within the same unit with the state police, is that correct?
That's correct.
And beyond the professional relationship you have with yourself, between yourself and Trooper DeChico, how would you characterize your relationship, generally speaking?
We're buddies, we golf together, hang outside of work, our kids play together. So I'd say, we're friends.
Now, within the, again, as far as the first message sent, date and time, and last message sent, date and time within this conversation, if you could describe that for the jury.
First message sent, date and time, March 17th, 2022, 11:08 a.m. Last message sent, date and time, August 18th, 2022, 6:08 a.m.
And again, the number of messages listed within this text chain?
87.
And fair to say the documents before you do not contain 87 text messages, correct?
That's correct, sir.
Now, just in general terms, if you have an opportunity to just look at the first couple pages there, fair to say those are just sort of jokes that you have going back and forth between yourself and Trooper DeChico. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Now, if I could turn your attention specifically to page 2632. And these are text messages starting on April 28th, 2022 at 10:52 in the morning. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, what was the time again, sir?
April 28th, 2022, 10:52 a.m.
Yes, correct.
And again, sir, with reference to this page, if you could read the content to the jury and please indicate who is speaking at each respective times.
Okay. I start out without a doubt. He's got diarrhea of the mouth too. Trooper DeChico, rookie move, not going into a meeting with the ME and getting that homicide determination. I respond, Yuri and I had 2 conference calls with her, sent her numerous photos, etc. We laid out the entire case for her. Trooper DeChico responds, not good enough, should have had me or Jeff do it. I respond, if you two did it, she would have made it accidental or natural causes.
And can you explain the context of those communications, or what exactly is it that you and Trooper DeChico are talking about in that communication?
Okay, so the ME is the medical examiner. They conducted the autopsy of Mr. O'Keefe. Our office, it's kind of a little bit of a locker room.
Hold on, wait for the ambulance and then speak up. The jurors can't hear you way back where the court officer's standing.
She's not being overly gentle with this guy, is she?
So like I said, the ME stands for medical examiner. They conducted the autopsy of Mr. O'Keefe. I guess I'll address the conference calls Sergeant Buchanan and I had with the medical examiner. The doctor had some questions as to the facts and evidence, kind of what had transpired, which is common. You know, even if it's a homicide, I've had many calls with the medical examiner's office, even if it's a suicide or overdose. Almost
Why is he rambling? What the
always
fuck?
with a homicide, the doctor wants to know what transpired. Trooper Chico and myself, we kind of like to bust each other's chops, go back and forth. So that's what he meant by saying, rookie move, not going into a meeting with the ME and getting that homicide determination. The original determination came back.
Sustained. Next question, Mr. Lally.
Now, as far as attending the autopsy, is that something that typically someone within your office would do, within your unit would do with regard to any sort of death investigation?
Yes.
And do you know who attended the autopsy of Mr. O'Keefe in this specific case?
Trooper Connor KEEFE.
And so as far as Trooper Chico's reference to you not going in or Sergeant Buchanan not going in, is that what you believe Trooper Chico was referring to in that message?
Objection.
Sustained as to the form.
You indicated that you and Trooper Chico bust each other's chops. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And can you describe a little more, expound upon that as far as the nature of your relationship and sort of the text messages that you exchange in this and then other communications that you have?
Basically just, you know, kind of needling each other, and him doing that is by saying, texting me, rookie move, not going into meeting with the medical examiner. So that's a perfect example of him kind of just needling me, which we do on a daily basis.
I think he was also
As
saying.
far as your interpretation of that, did you interpret that as a serious comment or something said in jest?
I interpreted that as a typical joke from Trooper Chico.
Yep.
May I approach to retrieve?
Yes.
Unreal. But it doesn't sound much like a funny to me. Busting chops.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Showing you another document, asking do you recognize that?
Yes.
Do you recognize that to be?
Text messages between myself and Trooper Chico.
And again, what is the first message sent, date and time, last message sent, date and time, and number of messages contained therein?
First message sent, date and time, April 28th, 2022 at 1:09 p.m. Last message sent, date and time, April 28th, 2022, 4:45 p.m.
And the number of messages, sir?
4.
And if you could read the contents of those messages contained therein. Please indicate who's speaking.
So I started out, of course, it's undetermined. She was a whack job.
Unreal.
Trooper Chico responds, "Dear God, WTF, what the hell is inconclusive about the whole thing?"
And as far as your indication there, as far as she was a whack job, who are you referring to there?
Miss Reed.
Jesus.
Now, as far as the undetermined of what you're talking about, what is sort of the content or the context of this conversation?
That would be the manner of death was determined to be undetermined by the medical examiner's office.
So I ask you again, as far as your reference there in the bottom of the first page, as far as she was
Really?
a whack job, whom do you believe you're referring to there?
Again,
Ms. Reed or the medical examiner?
Miss Reed.
Jeez.
May I
Right?
approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Not looking good for you, Proctor. Yeah. Yeah, Jackson's going to blow him apart. I wasn't expecting that. That's very interesting. So why, if he didn't know these people, why would he be calling her a whack job? Unbelievable. Doesn't look good that he was behind that vehicle, especially the whack job's vehicle, now that we see it that way. What were you doing near that tail light? That's right. I agree. Especially with such a small population. And you've got families like the Alberts that have been there since the beginning of time. Everybody knows them, especially when you're talking about them being cops and such. Yeah, something like that. It's not very big. Yeah, that's true. I don't understand why that was even allowed in, Dandy. Yeah. Hmm. So they must not have seen this document before. It's lovely how Lally just comes up with this stuff and drops it on their desk last minute. And then the Alberts, they destroyed their phone, so we don't know what they were sending out. But if it's anything like this, and I expect it would be worse, because I think they're in the process of maybe setting some things up, in my opinion.
I'd say just something with no pencil. You want to maybe approach briefly on this packet?
That's the thing, isn't it? It's pathetic. They don't even call him Officer O'Keefe. They call him, that guy. Hey, Chassie. Very, very disrespectful. Did you want to say playing? But, you know, for the most part, I think they'll just let him blab with Lolly, because then they can contradict the stuff that he's saying this time, because I don't expect him to be able to keep all of his stories straight. If this is what they've caught, imagine just head on, face to face with each other, the stuff they say. Things that they won't put on paper or in typing or electronically. Another long sidebar. Now, I'm not sure if they're going to 4 or 4:30 today.
You are unmuted.
May I approach the witness, John?
Yes.
They're handing you another set of documents. View those, look up when you're finished. Do you recognize those, sir?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
Another text thread between myself, Trooper DeChico, and Trooper Kokowski.
And Trooper Kaskowski is another trooper within your unit in the state police, is that correct?
Yes.
And again, if you could read from the first message sent, date and time, and the last message sent, date and time.
First message sent, date and time, 5/24/2022, 9:21 p.m. Last message sent, date and time, 8/24/2022, 4:56 p.m.
And as far as the number of messages indicated within this text chain between yourself, Trooper Kakowski, and Trooper DeChico,
494.
fair to say the documents before you do not contain 494 text messages, correct?
Correct.
Just in reference to that first page 2635, first message sent, that's May 24th, 2022, around 9:21 p.m., is that correct?
Yes.
And that's a message sent from Trooper Kaskowski, is that correct?
Correct.
And what is that?
Appears to be a picture of a toy Santa Claus.
Now, sir, if I could direct your attention to page 2644. If I could direct you to the bottom of the page, sir, and see the text from yourself at June 9th, 2022 at 11:19 p.m.
Yes.
Very bottom of the page. And Your Honor, may I approach just to point it out?
Yes.
Yeah, I see it, sir.
He
Okay.
said he's seen it,
You
Lolly.
could read what you wrote on June 9th, 2022, around that time, sir.
If you like women who shit themselves.
And again, sir,
What?
what is it that you're referring to there?
Again, a regrettable comment I made about Miss Reed's medical condition.
Now, if I could
What?
direct you to the following page, 2645. And again, if you could read from that page as far as who is, and indicate to the jury who is speaking and what is being said on page 2645.
I'm speaking right now. The statement she made tonight at 8/7 was mental. Thank Christ it was on BWC, which is body worn camera. Trooper Kukowski responds, that's her. Smoke. Trooper Kukowski again, what'd she say? I respond, said the Alberts beat the shit out of O'Keefe, left him for dead, and that's why her taillight was cracked. She's gross. Trooper DeChico, oh, fuck her, bitch.
What? What?
Thank you, sir. May I approach to retrieve your arm?
Oh, no, no, no.
Sir, with reference to that last bit as far as June 9th, 2022, what was going on that day in reference to this matter again?
Miss Reed was being processed at the Milton Barracks.
Oh, this guy, man. I hope he's not still working. Like, I hope they have not kept him on.
I may have just a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
What a disgusting individual. Yeah, just that, Ruthie. Exactly. He just kind of the defense. Well, it's not their fault that your witnesses are a-holes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me give another set of documents to recognize those.
I do.
What do you recognize those to be?
Another text thread with members from my office, troopers.
And who are the troopers that are listed within that?
Trooper Chris Moore, Trooper Jeff Kukowski, Lieutenant John Fanning, Trooper Dave DeChico, and Sergeant Yuri Buchanan.
And what is the first message sent, date and time?
That would be 5/26/2022 at 8:19 p.m. Last message sent, date and time, 8/26/2022, 5:36 p.m.
And what is listed as far as the number of messages within this chain?
651.
And fair to say the documents before you do not contain all 651 of those messages within this chain. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, sir, if I could direct your attention to page 2682. You see a message sent from Trooper DeChico on August 17th, 2022 at 9:42 p.m.
Yes.
And is that an image contained on the next page, which is 2683?
Yes, it is.
And what is the image of?
That is a picture of Mr. Yannetti. Appears to be from quite some time ago.
Now, turning your attention to the next page, 2684. And there's a response from you, August 17th, 2022 at 9:44 p.m. Is that correct?
Sorry, sir. Go with the date and time again, please.
Sure. Page 2684, 8/17/2022, 9:44 p.m.
Yes,
You see there's like sort of three responses from you.
I have you now.
If you could just read the three responses from yourself, sir.
Okay, so these came from me. Funny, I'm going through his retarded client's phone. No nude so far. I hate that man. I truly hate him.
Now, with reference to the investigation at this point, when you're talking about his client's phone, who are you referring to?
Miss Reed.
And with regards to the phone at that point, can you describe for the jury sort of what's going on during this time period of August 17th, 2022 in regard to Ms. Reed's phone?
So after obtaining a search warrant for Miss Reed's phone, We weren't able to extract any data from it until August of 2023. Troopers in my office knew I was going through the phone that evening. I was most interested in location data, text messages, Google searches.
Why? You're not.
That was the update I gave the troopers in the office. It was a distasteful joke. I should have gave a proper update instead of that. I wasn't able to go through the phone as thoroughly as possible because I came across some a text between an attorney and Miss Reed, so I had to stop going through her phone, and I made my supervisors aware of those communications.
Now, just in reference to what you had just said, this is in August of 2022, is that correct?
Correct.
So after a search warrant is obtained for the defendant's phone, where did it go? You indicated you gave it to Trooper Garino, and where did it go from there?
Trooper Garino essentially hooks it up to a device called GRIZZY'S, where it tries every possible combination passcodes in order to access the data contained in the phone.
And at that time, when you retrieved it pursuant to the search warrant, you didn't have the passcode to the defendant's phone, is that correct?
Correct.
So that device is designed to sort of go through numbers and try to find a combination to get into the phone, correct?
Correct.
And so from the time that you had seized it in late January or on January 29th, 2022, until this date in August of 2022, had you been able to get into the phone or see anything in the phone in those intervening months or 7 months between January and August?
No.
And so then at this time that you're sending this text message in August of 2022, is that around the time that you were first able to access the phone?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Yes, that was the first time we were able to have access to the phone.
And with reference to your access to the phone, were you looking for nudes or anything like that in regard to the defendant?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Like I stated, I was most interested in Miss Reed's location data, text communications, Google searches, things of that nature.
He's not a
More evidence contained within the phone.
That's not your job.
And so, sir, you mentioned at some point you came across some information that caused you to sort of freeze your looking through the phone. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so as far as that specific time period in August of 2022, when was the next time that you or any troopers from your office were able to actually look at any extraction of the defendant's phone?
So once I came across that text communication that took place on the 29th between Ms. Reed and an attorney, the phone had to be sent off to what they call a taint team to remove any attorney-client privilege information from the phone, and then it would be returned to us, as well as defense received a copy of that as well. I'm not positive on the time. It was quite a long turnaround for that process to be completed.
Sometime at least in the spring or summer of 2023. Does that sound about right?
It sounds about right.
May I approach to retrieve, Your Honor?
Yes.
Yeah. Is he an IT tech? I don't think so. Unreal.
May I have one moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
Oh, come on. Let's let Jackson at him. He looks like he's ready.
Thank you, sir. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right, so I'm going to see you at sidebar so I don't interrupt your cross.
Yeah. So it's looking like there's possibly a half hour unless she's decided to run a little longer. This is typical, isn't it? Yeah, that was pretty damning. What a disgusting human. Absolutely disgusting. Just what? Jesus criminy. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Oh, Mom. Yeah, she definitely does need a day off, right? Unreal. Jasmine. Jasmine, get there. Yeah, Jazzy's like, come on, this is enough of that ish show. If you don't get off there, I'm going to go through your garbage. Oh my God. Yeah, isn't it brutal how they talk about each other behind their backs, each other's backs? Mm-hmm. Come up there so they don't interrupt his go at the witness. What do you think the chances are that that's actually going to happen? If we've only got a half hour left, I can guarantee you we'll be spending at least one quarter of that time up there with Bev and Lolly. So if they're saying this about her, what do you think they're saying about John O'Keefe that we haven't heard yet? Yeah. 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 And we're in our 8th week. It was supposed to be over this week, but we're in our 8th week, and there has still been not one thing that points to Karen. We've got some real dickwad cops going around, but nothing is pointing to her. And as far as I'm concerned, now that they've blown that, in my personal opinion, have blown that taillight into a massive, massive, well, having lots and lots of damage, it makes you question everything else as well, because I'm pretty sure the very first witness, or one of the first witnesses, the friends of John O'Keefe, said that it was just cracked with like a little piece missing. And now they've got all sorts of tail light all over the place. Wow. Yeah, Carrie Roberts. And she's about the only one that has come in that's not got something to gain one thing or another. And she didn't hear, not even once did she hear Karen say, I killed him, I killed him, I killed him. She didn't hear that. And she's also saying that the
You are unmuted.
All right, so just before you start then, so we'll finish at 4.
Oh, there you
we're
go.
trying to figure out the schedule. This time I'm going to meet with the lawyers and witnesses. We're trying to work all that out, but as it looks right now, I thought it was going to interfere with another day this week. As it looks right now, it may not. At the most, it will be half an afternoon or something, maybe on Friday, but it does now look good that we'll be able to continue with this. We're out tomorrow, but Wednesday, Thursday, Friday will be full days, and we'll be able to keep moving. All right. All right, Mr. Jackson, go right ahead.
Thank you.
Mm.
Super Proctor, in the summer of 2022, August 17th specifically, you were sitting at your desk, presumably alone at your office, at about 10 p.m. at night, going through my client's personal cell phone, correct?
Yes, sir.
As a matter of fact, you were sitting there texting with your friends and colleagues at Massachusetts State Police about you going through her personal cell phone. Is that right?
Correct, sir.
And that included Trooper DeChico, is that right?
DeChico, yes, sir.
Trooper Fanning, Trooper Butnick, Trooper Moore, and Trooper Kutzkowski.
Kakowski.
Tell me that again.
Kakowski.
Kakowski.
Yes, sir.
All right, all the consonants are silent. Fair enough. Trooper Fanning and Trooper Butnick are your supervisors.
Yes.
And you were bragging to all 5 of them that you were going through Karen Reed's cell phone about 9:45 at night.
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Is that right?
No, I wasn't bragging, sir.
How did you refer to Miss Reed in that text exchange?
What
where you
was it?
informed them that you were going through her phone.
I used regrettable language. I said going through his retarded client's phone right now.
You were shown a photograph of my colleague, Mr. Unetti, correct?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Same document. Your Honor, I think the court has the copy that I was going to use.
I thought I gave him back to you.
You'd received a photograph. Actually, Your Honor, if I could, I would ask that this document be marked as next in order. Assuming the witness verifies its authenticity.
So go ahead.
Do you recognize this document?
I do, sir.
Same document that you were shown, copy of the same document that you were shown by Mr. Unetti, correct?
Still Lally.
I've done that twice. Mr. Lally.
Correct.
All right. Is that a true and accurate reflection of the text messages that you were exchanging with Chris Moore, Jeff Kakowski, John Fanning, Vito DeChico, and Yuri Buchanan?
Yes.
I'd ask that this be marked.
Okay, any objection?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, I'll see you outside down there. Have that, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I thought we just had this sidebar so it wouldn't be interrupted every couple minutes. Jesus. Wow. Well, as much as I think we need court tomorrow because it's just too much in between, we almost need a break from this. I mean, a day of this and you're like going through the roof. Oh, good girls. I know you was outside. Mm-hmm. Very good question. Very good question. Again, I've never seen this before. I don't even know. It's pathetic. It's not putting either one of them in a good light. And if you've got a lawyer there that you don't think is up to the task, that's hardly everybody else's fault. Same rules, same decorum. Yep, exactly. Oh, good Lord. I knew it. When this happens, it feels like anyways, Lolly wasted the whole day. And it's left the defense with what, a half hour? And now, I mean, we're down to 15 minutes and had only a little bit. And then they're going to break. It's like, oh my God, woman. But maybe this little bit will give them something else to think about, except other than what the prosecution would like.
You are unmuted.
5, 6, 7, you're on.
Okay. And then I would ask you to give it back to the witness, please.
May I inquire, Your Honor?
Yes.
Trooper Proctor, Trooper DeChico had sent you a photograph of my colleague, Mr. Yannetti, correct?
Yes.
Why?
Your Honor, because of the technical issue, I'm not going to display on the television. May I display this hard copy briefly? Sure. Thank you. You see that, gentleman?
I do, sir.
Is that the photograph that you received?
Yes.
Is that what you referred to on direct examination with Mr. Lally about receiving a photograph from Mr. Yannetti?
Correct.
And then your response was what?
I hate that man. I truly hate that man.
Actually, your response was, I'm going through his retarded client's phone right now, correct?
Yes, after the picture, sir, yes.
Who's the retarded client?
I was referring to Ms. Reed, again, unprofessional language.
I'm asking who you were referring to.
Ms.
I know
Reed.
you got an explanation. Who was it that you were referring to as retarded?
Ms. Reed.
Karen Reed, the woman sitting to my left.
Yes, sir.
The subject of your investigation as a professional, correct?
Yes, sir.
as an unbiased, objective investigator, the person that you were investigating, you referred to your bosses as retarded, correct?
Again, poor language on my part.
Poor language is one way to put it. Completely offensive is another way to put it, right?
Objection.
I've got to sustain that, Mr. Jackson.
After you referred to my client as retarded, then you decided to make a comment about Mr. Yannetti, her lawyer, correct?
Correct.
And what did you say about Mr. Yannetti again?
I hate that man. I truly hate that man.
I hate that man. I truly hate him, correct?
Correct.
You didn't say I dislike him, disagree with him. You said I hate him, correct?
Correct, sir.
That's a visceral response to someone who's just doing a job, correct?
Objection.
Sustained. You can ask it differently.
Sure. Let me ask it this way. Were you upset or annoyed or pissed off that Karen Reed had gotten representation, legal representation, to represent her?
No, not at all. That's her right.
Well, let me ask you this. In August of 2022, you said you absolutely hate it, correct?
I don't know if I use absolutely. Yeah, I didn't use absolutely, sir.
You used truly, correct?
Truly, yes.
How do you feel about him now? He's sitting right there.
I still don't care for him now.
I'll let it stand.
What did you tell your colleagues that you were looking for as you sat at almost 10 p.m. at night on a Wednesday night, August 17th, 2022, looking through Karen Reed's phone?
I didn't tell them I was looking through anything. They knew I was going through Miss Reed's phone. I provided a inappropriate joke as an update. They knew I was going through location data, text messages, Google searches. But like I had mentioned earlier, I had to stop.
Except Trooper Proctor, none of that really professional sounding stuff ended up in your comments to your bosses, did it?
Again, it was a poor joke.
Is that yes or no?
Did not know.
It did not.
No,
As a
sir.
matter of fact, what did you write after you talked about going through the quote retarded client's phone?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No nudes so far.
No nudes so far, correct?
Correct.
And you said that to your bosses.
Yes, sir.
You were looking for naked photographs of Miss Reed on a Wednesday night as you sat in your office at 9:44 p.m., correct?
No, not correct.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever looked for naked photos of a male suspect that you were investigating?
I don't look for naked photos in anyone's phones.
But you said you were looking for nudes of Miss Reed,
Like I
correct?
said, Mr. Jackson, it was an inappropriate joke.
Sir, this is a citizen. She's a woman. You were supposed to be objectively investigating. Does your text message to your colleagues at Massachusetts State Police reflect an objective investigation of a citizen?
Objection.
You can get part of that question and ask it again.
Do you believe that your text messages were reflective of an objective investigator?
Objection.
I'll allow that. Do you believe that, Trooper Proctor?
I believe poor jokes have, in unprofessional language, have no bearing on the integrity and the facts and physical evidence of this case.
It's not that they don't have any bearing on the facts and integrity. It's that they have no place in a professional investigation because it shows bias, right?
Objection.
So I have to sustain that as asked. Go ahead and ask it differently, Mr. Jackson.
You weren't so much as objectively investigating Karen Reed as objectifying her, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
Isn't that right?
Rephrase the question, please.
You weren't so much as objectively investigating her as objectifying her in those moments, correct?
Again, Mr. Jackson, it was a poor choice of words and a joke that I should not have texted out. But from the start of the investigation, we didn't know what we had.
And your Trooper Proctor, your point in saying no nudes so far to your colleagues in Massachusetts State Police was to suggest that you were looking for nudes and you'd update them when you found them, correct?
Incorrect.
Well, let me ask you a question. Did you find any nudes of
Again,
Karen Reed?
I didn't go through the photos, sir.
Did you find any nudes of Karen Reed?
I didn't go through the photos, sir.
You weren't successful in your quest.
I came across text messages from Miss Reed to another attorney on January 29th, so I had to stop looking through her phone.
So you got sidetracked before you could get to the naked pictures of Miss Reed. Is that what you're saying?
Sustained.
To be clear, when you sent those text messages on that group chat, those text messages included, as we said, or as you said, not one, but two of your supervisors, correct?
Correct.
Were you ever reprimanded for your conduct in sending that text message?
Objection.
So that's sustained. Do we need to go to sidebar based on what you told me earlier?
We do not.
Okay, so,
I'll ask it a different way.
okay.
Did either Trooper Fanning or Trooper Buchanan dress you down in a responsive text message in that text thread for doing something so abhorrent as looking for nudes or referring to nudes of a female suspect or subject of your investigation? Did that ever happen?
Not that I can recall.
As a matter of fact, in reference to one of the text messages in this same string, your boss, Yuri Buchanan, actually responded to the photo of Mr. Yannetti, didn't he?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
You don't remember?
He did, sir.
You don't remember.
After you received the photo, that's when you said, I'm, quote, funny, I'm going through his retarded client's phone. Is that right?
Objection.
I'll allow this, but not too many more.
Sure. Is that correct? It's on the top of page
Yes, sir.
2685.
That's correct.
And Yuri Buchanan liked that comment. Funny, I'm going through his retarded client's phone.
I see you laughed at an image here, sir. I can't tell if he liked that comment, sir.
May I approach?
Yes.
I don't know if it's just because it's faded or... Yeah, my copy's faded.
Top 2685. You can use my copy if that helps.
All right. Thank you.
What do you see on the top of that page?
That Sergeant Buchanan liked it.
Like what?
The going through his retarded client's phone, sir.
May I approach?
Yes.
I'll take my copy.
There you go.
See, he's trying to act calm, but
So your supervisor,
some of his expressions are saying not.
not only didn't ride you for making comments like this, he encouraged it.
Objection.
Sustained.
Trooper Proctor, this is your direct chain of command. Is that right? Yuri Buchanan?
Yes, sir.
Did you believe that your conduct was a misuse of your authority and power as you were going through her phone in August of 2022?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No, I had a warrant signed by a district clerk, Stoughton District Clerk, to go through Miss Reed's phone. I don't think it was an abuse of power. I had every right to go through that phone.
Did the warrant say anything about looking for nudes of my client?
Objection.
Did it
No,
say anything about that?
no, Your Honor.
Okay, next question.
So that would be an abuse of the power that was given to you by the court, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Trooper Proctor, you'd agree that the hallmark of any good investigation, as you've been taught and others in the Massachusetts State Police have been taught, is that the investigation and the investigator have to be fair. They have to be impartial. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Meaning that the investigation has to be free of conflicts, right?
Yes, sir.
The investigator has to be free of conflicts, right?
Yes,
The investigation has to be free of bias. Is that right?
correct.
You can't be biased against the person that you're investigating. That would compromise the entire thing, wouldn't it?
Yes,
Basically, you follow the evidence. You're supposed to follow the evidence wherever it takes you, right?
correct.
Good or bad, top to bottom, just follow the evidence and report it back. That's how an investigation is supposed to be run, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
And these are things that you learn early on at Massachusetts State Police Academy and then in your detective training. Isn't that right?
It is.
And literally, it's part of an oath that you took at the academy that you will, quote, faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all of the duties incumbent on you as a Massachusetts State Police trooper, right?
Yes, sir.
You swore that oath.
I did.
When you start an investigation, everybody in that investigation should be treated exactly the same. Don't you believe that's true?
Correct.
Everybody, have you ever heard the phrase, everybody's a suspect until they're not? Right?
Objection.
Sustained.
It's especially important early in an investigation before all of the facts are known that the investigator is not compromised by bias, prejudice, right?
Correct.
Most important early in the investigation, because that's when the most things are up in the air. There's the cloud, the fog of not knowing exactly what the truth is, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
In other words, Trooper Proctor, you don't get to pick a suspect and then try to find evidence to support your choice, right?
Correct.
But in this case, it's exactly what you did, isn't it?
Absolutely not.
All right, Mr. Jackson, why don't we end for today?
This is
Okay.
as good a place as any. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. All right, so folks, we're off tomorrow. Those same 3 cautions, please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case. If you happen to see, hear, read anything about the case, please disregard it and let us know. We'll see you Wednesday morning. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right now, it's anticipated will be full days of testimony with short ones. Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right. Jury up.
All right, so one last time at sidebar for scheduling, okay?
And my volume's off. I was just noticing as I looked over. So we got Monday done. She needs another day of rest tomorrow. And then we've got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Now, I'm not positive. I think she was talking about a half a day on Friday, but the way she was just talking now, that's not the way I took it. So maybe a full day now. Oh my God, what do you think of Proctor? Holy shite. Ah. Right? Oh my God. Yeah, and he's got a day to, well, tomorrow, right? So a day to regroup. There is that to it. But I think that enough came out that I'm hoping Jackson will have lots to work with. Like, what the hell was he doing talking about Karen like that? Like, it sounded so much like he had a grudge or something. It didn't sound like he was just, oh, this is just something. It didn't sound random. Oh my God. Can you still not hear me? Can you not hear me? Oh, okay. Okay. I just seen. Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. That's good. Yeah. A couple of days of rest for him, but I have a feeling that Jackson's still going to have his time, right? A lot came out with Lolly. And I don't know. Hard to believe he didn't have any kind of heads up about Karen at all with the amount of venom that he's got. It was almost, they'll argue like the most redundant things, like you can't get this much. And you start to really ask yourself, why? Why won't you just go that one step further? Not going to happen. And then he's calling her like, oh, bad words, bad words. Total stranger? Oh, no, I don't know. He'd either heard something, which is my guess, you know, something about her. He did. This doesn't sound like a guy that has heard nothing about the case, not that kind of venom. And why does he not like Yannetti? That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, probably some nefarious deals going down on those phones, right? Yeah, and an officer has no reason to have such disdain. It's true, or that much disdain. I agree. So I don't know. We'll see what they dig up. So hubby's starting to mow the lawn. So I'm going to bounce. So thank you guys for hanging out with me. I'll catch you over in Discord at some point. If you're new, don't forget to send your request. The email address will be down in the description to get your link to come into Discord. And Discord's a great spot. I think you guys would really enjoy it. We do. We do. Okay, guys. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Dun 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 dun.